This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, it seemed like a good idea at the time. We're talking, does this mean that you're back on the case? If so, goody goody. And we're talking, thinking about cannibalism? And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking corn pone country pussy.
Oh, Jesus. Krenler with all of the most disgusting misogynistic lines in this movie.
He says it twice. Honestly,
yes.
I hate this character. I know we're supposed to, but I just hate this character. Like, I wish he wasn't in this movie. But
oh, okay. But he's our secondary antagonist?
Well, we can talk about that. Everyone, we are discussing Ridley Scott's Hannibal from 2001, the 10 years later sequel to The Silence of the Lambs that everyone was waiting for, and very few people, I think, really loved when it came out.
I'm not sure that many people even like this movie. It feels like this is a movie that is never on anyone's radar. Like, when you talk about Hannibal, people don't talk about this one, and then they don't talk about the sequel to this movie.
Red Dragon, which...
the Hannibal Rising?
Oh, Hannibal Rising. Yeah, I'm sorry, because Red Dragon came out the year after this, and then it was like 5 years after Red Dragon, we got Hannibal Rising. No one remembers Hannibal Rising, except for that actor's performance, Gaspard Ulliel. Although he died, sadly, so...
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny that you mentioned Red Dragon, because I don't think it's a bad movie. I think if we really wanted to, we could cover it someday. But every time I think about that movie, I'm just like, but Manhunter is right there.
So, okay, I saw Manhunter really late, and I need to give it another watch, because I wasn't crazy about it.
Not blown away? No.
I wasn't really. And here's the thing. Red Dragon is like the weakest of like the Anthony Hopkins Lecter films, but
sure.
If you were going to say any of them was a popcorn movie, it's Red Dragon.
Yeah, and there's good parts about it. I just think it's the one that's the most slick, which is saying something, because hello, Ridley Scott's Hannibal, which is basically because I'm so curious to see if my memories of the way that this was received are what you're going to clarify for me, because I just remember people being like, what the fuck did Ridley Scott ingest making this movie? Because it is so gross and splattery and just kind of tasteless.
I think we can go back to Thomas Harris's novel for that, because it all starts there. But really quick, though, do you remember who directed Red Dragon?
It's Brett Ratner.
Brett Ratner, yeah. Notorious sex pest.
Oh my God, I forgot he was a sex pest. Here I was just like, oh, Hollywood sellout and kind of schlocky shit director.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a sex pest. And I believe he bullied Elliot Page on the set of X-Men The Last Stand.
Absolutely did. Yep.
Yeah. But, okay, well, so Joe, so everyone, we do have an episode in The Silence of the Lambs from 4 years ago, I think.
God,
it's like 2020.
stop.
I know, I was like, oh my God. So you can hear our thoughts on that film there, but Joe, I guess, I mean, shit, was this a theatrical screening for you? Did you see Hannibal when it came out?
I definitely went to the theaters in 2001. I had also read the book in anticipation. Actually, it was more like I was excited for the book, and then the movie came out, and I was so curious about whether they were going to adapt all the parts of it, because, I don't think people loved this movie, but people hated the book.
I know. And I did not see this in theaters.
Well, you would have been too young.
Well, yeah, I was 12 when I was about to be 12 when this came out, because it's a Valentine's Day release. But I remember my parents talking about it because they would not stop talking about the pigs.
Yes.
And my mom said it was really weird. And I don't think it was until my senior year of high school. So 2007, I remember I for Christmas, I got all 3 of the books. I got Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal.
Okay.
And I'll never forget my sister looking at me like, "What? Why would you ask for books for Christmas?"
Is my brother a burgeoning serial killer?
Well,
Question mark. Enter into Ask Jeeves.
Oh, no. It wasn't the content of the books. It was that I asked for books, period. Because Christmas wasn't a time for learning things.
Oh my God, Haley, sweetie.
Haley's not a reader. But I think by this point, I think by this point I had already seen Silence of the Lambs, but I hadn't seen Manhunter, Red Dragon, or Hannibal. And so I read the books in order. And yeah, Hannibal the book is
so wild.
It's weird, man. Like, it almost feels like a really like a gothic exploitation book. I don't know. It's a thing where I can totally understand why people hated it when it came out, and we'll talk about the ending.
Right.
But it was kind of a thing where I don't know. I was in a mindset where I was like, it's not real. Like Silence of the Lambs is the only real one.
Okay.
I know. Well, it kind of read like fan fiction to me, even though it was from the author of the books.
You know what? I fully agree with that, because it truly feels like Thomas Harris has almost lost the pulse of who the characters are. I actually think that Hannibal Lecter is fairly well realized, and you can tell that Thomas Harris's interest has shifted definitely away from Clarice towards Hannibal. I think some people would argue that was always maybe the case. It's just like with each text he became, I mean, it's a cash cow, right? So put the cannibalistic serial killer front and center and shift the woman who's dealing with misogyny in the workplace to the side.
Wow.
But yeah, like Thomas Harris is a weird fucking dude. And I remember reading this book, and this was the first one that I really read as an adult. Mm-hmm. And I just remember thinking, this dude has a problem with queerness.
Well,
we are going to talk about Margot and how Margot is completely absent from the film. And folks, you can hear our thoughts on the TV incarnation played by Catherine Isabel when we get to her in a couple of months on the Patreon, because it was also very weird and jarring to go between like our regular Hannibal coverage, the TV show, and then watching this and being like, oh, this is not as faithful. This is not the Brian Fuller version.
Well, I think this actually is a mostly faithful telling of the book. And the things they cut out, I kind of get why. But the big omission is Margot as a character, Mason Verger's sister. And then, yes, the ending is wildly changed. But for the most part, I mean, this is a fairly faithful adaptation of a very long book.
Well, yes. Okay, so tell me, how does this come about? Because 10 years later, like, that is wild. We would never have waited that long, although I guess we needed the book to come out.
Well, that's the thing. And I feel like Thomas Harris was like George R.R. Martining this stuff, because it's like he had so much pressure after this huge success of The Silence of the Lambs, both book and film, to make a sequel, and it took him, 10 years to do so.
Right.
And I feel like he just said, whatever, I'm just going to write this. And there we go.
Yeah, it's either a work in progress or fine, this will shut them the fuck up.
And it shut them up for a minute while they read it. And then they had to talk about it. But
yes.
So all of this is coming from 2 major sources. One is a making of featurette on the Blu-ray /4K, which is like an hour and 15 minutes long. But this featurette is very much like this is the publicity one. Like it gives you some good information, and there is some candid nature to some of the dialogue that they're saying. But at the same time, it's like, but this is a really good film, and we don't want to talk about the bad things about it,
Right. Yeah. I watched the first part on YouTube where it's also available, and it definitely seemed like they were shooting this while they were either in production or just as they had basically while they were doing the marketing for the film, like the PR.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, well, we're clearly not going to get anything real out of any of these interviews. It's all going to be, the book is so good, and now we turned it into this great movie, and we really miss Jonathan Demme.
Very much. That's basically what it is. So I'm also pulling then from an article from The Guardian from February of 2001 called How Hannibal Came to be Made. And this is very much like we're tracing the journey of how the fuck we got here. So
nice. Shout out to The Guardian Guardian. I've been using them a ton for like Murder Made Fiction as well. Really good journalism.
Really good journalism. I would honestly, I could have copied and pasted the article and just like
read it aloud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I put my own flair in it, obviously. Okay. So
plagiarist, my God.
So in 1985, producing couple Dino and Martha De Laurentiis, which by the way, like their interviews, I was like, oh, it's his daughter. No, that's his wife, and she's 35 years his junior.
Yeah, it's definitely older men and hot young wife.
Yes, you can read their story on their Wikipedia pages.
I don't think I will.
But in 1985, they bought the rights to Thomas Harris's best-selling thriller Red Dragon, from which they produced Michael Mann's 1986 film Manhunter. And again, I think some of this we probably went over in Silence of the Lambs, but some of this I didn't really remember. But again, 4 years difference. So
yeah,
that film grossed $8.5 million against a production budget of $15 million. So
it's very artsy. It reminds me a little bit of a Tony Scott, so not a Ridley Scott. It reminds me a little bit of like The Hunger. Like it's got that vibe, that 80s-ness to it.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that is, I remember watching it and I was like, this feels more like a Tony Scott film, and Tony Scott and I don't really gel very often. So
maybe that's it then.
Yeah, that movie was honestly a lot weirder than I was expecting it to be. I think I was expecting it to be more Silence of the Lambs, and it's very much not.
It's very interior-minded in some ways.
So, but with that box office haul, I mean, again, Manhunter was a bomb. So the De Laurentiis were disappointed. So whenever Harris completed The Silence of the Lambs, the book, neither Dino nor Martha bothered to even read it, even though they owned the screen rights to the Lecter character, who of course features much more prominently in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
So Harris and director Jonathan Demme came to De Laurentiis wanting to set the project up elsewhere, and De Laurentiis agreed and lent Orion Pictures the character of Hannibal Lecter for free.
Oh, no.
So, because their mindset was, okay, well, it's a good asset, but like if it gets popular from Silence of the Lambs, then we have a really valuable asset, but like whatever, like we're not going to charge you for it. So here you go.
Sure. Hindsight.
Well, obviously, The Silence of the Lambs was a huge success, grossing $272 million worldwide and winning 5 Oscars. Oops.
Ouch.
So the De Laurentiis suddenly found themselves sitting on a valuable asset. Even before the movie came out, there was maneuvering for a stake in a potential sequel to Silence of the Lambs. And this is when it gets kind of weird. I really wanted to cover this part because I know we'll be talking about the lack of Clarice of it all in Brian Fuller's show.
Right.
And I never really understood the rights issue here. So Tom Pollock, the then chairman of Universal, and weirdly enough, the former attorney who represented De Laurentiis during the making of Manhunter, this head of Universal, he asked De Laurentiis, who still controlled Lecter, to make any sequel at Universal. And bear in mind, like they're not with Universal. So
right.
The De Laurentiis felt that Pollock was using other films they were partnering on as leverage for this request, and
like, let's make another couple of movies together. And then each time he's like, hey, how do you feel about Hannibal Lecter coming over to Universal?
Yes. But then Pollock apparently felt that they had reached an oral agreement, like a gentleman's agreement, to go ahead and do a sequel. So a conflict ensued. The De Laurentiis filed a $25 million lawsuit against Universal, and they eventually settled. I mean, the studio got the participation it wanted, so they were fine.
Okay. And I'm guessing because it was settled, we don't actually know the sum.
No, we do not know the
sum. Right, okay.
But I will tell you, the De Laurentiis seem like money. I still like that shitting on them. I'm really not, but like they're very money-oriented.
Yeah, that's always the impression I've got as well. It's very much like, okay, yeah, we make movies, and we make movies that are popular, but also we're in this for the cashola.
Yes. So the De Laurentiis were waiting with bated breath for Thomas Harris to finish the sequel to Silence of the Lambs. And he knew it was going to be made into a movie, which is why I find it so fascinating that he wrote Hannibal the way he did. Like, right. Part of me also wonders if the De Laurentiis' involvement played a hand in the fact that a good chunk of the book is in Italy.
Oh, maybe.
So De Laurentiis purchased the book rights for a record $10 million. And before publication, the manuscript was sent out to Anthony Hopkins, Jodie Foster, and Jonathan Demme, who had all been tangentially involved in the sequel, with Demme being pretty involved with all these, like, because they kept checking in with Thomas Harris, like, hey, do you have the book done yet? Do you have the book done yet? And Demme was part of all this.
Just imagining Thomas Harris, like, out on some kind of veranda, trying to enjoy a coffee and a croissant or something, and just the phone ringing. Hi, Thomas. It's Jonathan. Just wanted to know the state of that script. How's that book coming along?
And I'm sure the pressure Harris was feeling was like, it could not have been easy to write under that kind of pressure, which is probably why we got Hannibal.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how much he did either rush or if, I mean, it's tricky, right? It's very rare to have somebody go back on their work and say, oh, yeah, it's just not the way I would have done it if I had had more time or less pressure. But I think he still kind of stands by it.
I think he does too. I mean, it made him a bunch of money too. What he's going to do?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, so, all these people read the manuscript, and while the De Laurentises were in Malta filming the submarine movie U-571, which, by the way, I saw it in theaters twice against my will.
Okay. Good movie?
I mean, it's fine. It's a Matthew McConaughey submarine war movie. I just I just can't. But I was forced to go see the movie twice. Once with my family and once with like a group of boyfriends.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was under duress. I thought that meant you liked it.
No, God, no. I had to go see it twice. I think one was for a birthday party. Anyway, but while they were filming this movie, they got a fax saying
I love a fax. Yes,
saying that Demme was passing on directing a film adaptation of Hannibal.
Ooh, he read that ending.
Now, of course, they were like, holy fuck, what are we going to do? Luckily for them, Ridley Scott was also in Malta at the time filming Gladiator right next door to the set for U-571.
Wow. Okay.
De Laurentiis actually knew Ridley Scott because he was one of the directors involved in adapting Dune before De Laurentiis hired David Lynch.
Oh, man. That one has its own storied production history.
Yes. I'm familiar. I don't know exactly what went on, but I know it's a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
But anyway, so he sent Scott the manuscript, and Scott read it in like a week and accepted it. And his major qualm was the ending, in which, yes, if you don't know, Hannibal essentially brainwashes Clarice /
Yeah, he basically gives her a drug cocktail to more or less change her personality so that she falls in love with him.
Well, but that's not exactly. I mean, maybe that's what he's doing secretly. I don't think it actually is, because what he's doing is he's giving her therapy. Like he brings her dad's skeletal remains out to give her closure, and so it's like this kind of hypnosis therapy. But yes,
but then she also falls in love with him, and then she runs away, and they become like cannibals touring around Europe.
But I haven't read Hannibal in 20 years, but I'm like, okay, I don't think it like. Is it because he did that drug cocktail therapy stuff that, it completely made her fall in love with him? Or was it like sprinkled throughout the book? Was it leading there all along? I don't remember.
I mean, people have always wanted to read something of a romantic relationship between the characters, even going back as far as Silence of the Lambs. I personally don't see it. I think it's actors who have good chemistry and good like screen charisma. But yeah, I remember reading the book and thinking, this is feeling very familiar. Like, we get this moment in the film where Hannibal talks to her, and it still feels like he's kind of making fun of her white trash, quote unquote, backstory. Yeah. But there are definitely other parts where you're like, oh, I think he's definitely in love with her and or wants to fuck her.
It definitely becomes clear in the movie as they go on.
Yeah.
I will say, too, I watched the deleted scenes, of which there are 30 minutes for this movie.
Oh, okay.
There aren't really any things worth noting, but there's two. And one of them is Hannibal gets in Clarice's car and licks her steering wheel.
Okay.
Like Anthony Hopkins just licking the steering wheel. It's wild.
I mean, go for it, because he probably got paid about $10 million for this
11
movie.
million.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so anyway, but yes, in the book of Hannibal and Clarice run away to be lovers together. Like that's how it ends. And this also bristled Universal Studios' feathers. So they went to Academy Award-winning screenwriter Steven Zalen, who won his Oscar for Schindler's List. When Ted Talley, the screenwriter for Silence of the Lambs, also turned down adapting Hannibal.
Okay.
Well, Zalen turned it down at this point. So they then went to Glengarry Glen Ross screenwriter David Mamet, who is, by the way, an enormous Trump supporter.
Oh no, come on.
I know. But he took a first stab at the screenplay, and that version apparently needed major revision, so they went back to Zalen, the Schindler's List guy, who at this point was like, oh, well, they got David Mamet to do it, so I'd be a fool to turn this down. And so
also, most of the work is done. Let me just punch this up a little bit and collect a big payday.
Exactly. So he accepted the offer, and boom, 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 boom.
There we go. Okay.
Well, actually, he accepted it on one condition. The condition was the ending needed to be resolved, because I guess even Mamet's screenplay either didn't have an ending or it just adapted the ending of the book, which I was like, that didn't seem like likely, because I'm sure every fucking note on this manuscript was, don't do this ending.
Oh, right. Like, we love the idea of making another Hannibal Lecter movie, but we cannot end it this way.
Yes. Okay, so De Laurentiis then flew Harris out to LA to sit in a hotel room with Ridley Scott and Steven Zalen for 4 days brainstorming other endings and eventually settling on the one we see in the film.
Okay. Which I think, by the way, is fine. You know, I think whether you love or hate the book, it's a big swing kind of ending, like very polarizing. I can understand why they change it for the film because it's just not going to make you money. But what we get definitely feels a little bit cowardly.
I don't think this movie has an ending. Like, this doesn't feel like an ending to this movie. And
it's Hannibal Lecter will return a la James Bond, you know, like give him a couple of years, we'll make another movie, and hopefully Anthony Hopkins will still be willing to play him.
Okay, help me out with this. There has to be a book or a book sequel that was adapted where they were just like, nope, not doing that. Oh, Psycho. Why didn't we do that with Hannibal? If everyone was so worried about that, I'm just shocked we didn't just say, you know what, Thomas Harris, we're good. We're just gonna write our own.
I think they were afraid of pissing him off because they probably anticipated that there would be future things that they would either want to do with him or future Hannibal things that they would want to do with him.
Well, I feel like if this was done today, they would have said, left him in the dust.
Maybe, yeah.
But they do get Anthony Hopkins back as Hannibal, obviously, which was a stroke of luck because in December of 1998, he made this public statement.
Okay.
To hell with this stupid show business, this ridiculous showbiz, this futile waste of life. I look back and see a desert wasteland. All those years spent in a fake environment, everything was a fake. So he basically announced his retirement from acting in December of 1998. And I couldn't figure out why exactly.
I was going to say, Hannibal's the movie that brings him back?
So apparently he Martha De Laurentiis offers some insight, and she's kind of like, you know, he went through a string of films where he wasn't working with directors that really, like, he thought were up to the task. But here's the thing. I believe this statement was made while he was making Titus with Julie Taymor.
Fuck off. We just talked about this, and I refuse to accept that.
Well, apparently Anthony Hopkins did not have a good time filming Titus.
Okay. I mean, admittedly, it looks a bit grueling. I think there may have also been friction. This is possibly me just stirring the pot. There might have been friction between him and Jessica Lange in real life.
It might be. Either way. He got the manuscript. He read it. He did. It's weird. I have two different quotes from him. One says he didn't make an opinion of it because he kind of like checks out. He just wants to see like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. But then in the featurette on the Blu-ray, he says, oh yeah, I thought it was kind of overreaching and bizarre.
Oh, okay. That's not the direction I thought you were going to go in. I thought it was going to be very fake platitudes because, I mean, let's be real. Anthony Hopkins is a great actor in certain projects, and then he is the biggest phone it inner in several other projects. So
I think, yeah, you know what? Good for him.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm a huge advocate for people going out there and getting the fucking money that they are owed. So sometimes you're working because it's a payday, and sometimes you're working because it's a payday, and you also feel passionately about the work.
Yes. Well, so then he finally reads the screenplay and liked that, and matter-of-factly said, sure, but I am sure the $11 million salary was probably pretty convincing as well.
I mean, yeah, everybody's got to live. That's a lot of croissants.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, so now the Clarice of it all.
Okay.
So you remember how the De Laurentiis turned down making The Silence of the Lambs?
Mm-hmm.
When they did that, that also means they passed on the rights to Clarice Starling as a character. So...
Okay, so they loaned Hannibal out, but they gave away Clarice.
Exactly. And so to obtain them again, they had to go through MGM, which had acquired Orion... So Orion Pictures did Silence of the Lambs, but by the time Hannibal was being made, Orion had gone bankrupt.
I was going to say, yeah.
So MGM bought all their stuff, and so then MGM now owned Clarice as of 1997. So this meant that Hannibal, if we were going to include both Hannibal and Clarice, would have to be a co-production deal between both Universal and MGM, with each of them taking an equal share of the profits.
Okay, which I presume they negotiated because they thought this was going to be a huge financial windfall.
Yeah, 100%. So basically, yes, Universal, Hannibal, MGM, Clarice.
There we go.
Okay. you might notice that Jodie Foster does not reprise the role of Clarice Starling in Hannibal.
Wait, what?
I
That's
know.
not Jodie Foster on screen?
I had no idea. And they're okay. I'm saying right now up front, there doesn't seem to be a definitive answer as to why she turned it down.
Okay.
But okay, like some places are like, okay, some say she had sequelitis. Others contend that she had either disliked the book or didn't want to do it without Demi and or was slated to direct another film. It's kind of all of the above. So, okay.
Right.
This is a direct quote from Foster in November of 1999. I stand to make more money doing that sequel than I've ever made in my life, but who cares if it betrays Clarice, who is a person in some strange way to me?
Right. Okay, so that's the I don't like what Harris and this script is doing to the character that made me very, very famous.
Yes. And here's the thing. I don't disagree with her. I think Clarice is wasted in both this book and movie.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's really upsetting.
It's basically secondary character status, right? Like this is not her movie.
Well, and I don't like her plot. I don't like her arc. I don't like her plot. Like it's not what I want to see Clarice Starling doing. But yeah.
Right. Okay.
But speaking of that money, so again, this is why I'm kind of like De Laurentiis. So De Laurentiis said that Jodie Foster demanded a $20 million salary and 15% of the gross, which insulted him, saying, I don't believe Judy Foster, he was intentionally missaying her name.
Oh, come on, man.
I don't believe Judy Foster from day one was right when I read the book.
Okay. Eyes the Oscar that she won for the iconic role, becomes definitive feminist character, like one of the most important of all time. Sure. Miscast. Yeah.
But here's the thing. So, however, Foster was also trying to get a movie made called Flora Plum, which would have been this like a 1930s circus movie that starred Claire Danes and Russell Crowe. But
I mean, it does get made, right?
No, it doesn't.
Are you sure?
No. Are you thinking of Temple Grandin?
I don't know. I could have sworn that
No, Flora Plum never got made.
Oh my God. How do I have like memories of this movie?
Trust me, I did too. And then I saw I'm glad I caught it because at some point someone said, oh, but it never got made. And I was like, what? So I looked it up and it never got made.
That is so weird.
If you search for Flora Plum, it takes you to Jodie Foster's Wikipedia page.
Okay, interesting.
So, but anyway, but Crowe got injured and he had to back out, and then the film fell through. But in 2005, after Hannibal had been released, Foster said this to Total Film. The official reason I didn't do Hannibal is I was doing another movie, Flora Plum. So I get to say in a nice, dignified way that I wasn't available when that movie was being shot. Clarice meant so much to Jonathan and I, and she really did. And I know that sounds kind of strange to say, but there was no way that either of us could really trample on her. And so here's the thing. Like all this, it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this. I think it was all of it. So I think that Jodie Foster did not like this. I don't think she wanted to do it, especially without Demi. But there was a dollar amount that could have gotten her to come back.
Yeah.
De Laurentiis
and they wouldn't meet it.
Said, fuck no. We're only paying Anthony Hopkins $11 million. Go screw yourself. And so then her official reason was, oh, I'm sorry, scheduling conflicts. Like that was the public reason.
The old standby. By the way, I think the movie that I was thinking of is Cinderella Man, which comes out in 2005. It is a period piece.
Oh, I know what that is. That is Crowe and Renee Zellweger. And I saw that trailer 1,000,000 times in theaters that year.
It didn't really look like my cup of tea, so I've never seen it.
I think it's a Ron Howard film, but yeah, no, I will never watch that movie. Watch the trailer; it's so boring. So okay, but De Laurentiis, he handled that pretty poorly. Universal took Foster's decision much harder, so they went back to her to beg, and she still said no.
Good for her.
Well, here's the thing. Ridley Scott, who knew her when she was originally cast in Thelma and Louise alongside Michelle Pfeiffer before they dropped out and got replaced with, Susan Sarandon and Jeannie Davis.
Right. I did know that because of the Queer Quadrants episode on it.
I had no idea.
It's wild.
I've never seen it.
Be a totally different movie.
Yeah.
Wait, what? You've never seen it?
I've never seen it. I know they drive off a cliff and that's it.
Oh, no, Trace. There's so much more to it. I think you would really like it.
No, I'm sure I would. But Scott went to go find her. She still said no. Hopkins, meanwhile, stayed out of it, saying, I love this, I think actors who get involved in that stuff must need a good psychoanalyst. Just give me my plane ticket and I'll show up. I keep my life much simpler that way.
See my previous comment from about 3 to 5 minutes ago, depending on how Trace edits me. This is Anthony Hopkins in pure, give me the money and I'll show up and do it mode.
I mean, here's the thing. I think to him, this is a job.
It's a job.
Like,
It should be a job. Like, obviously, we want these actors to, like, live and die for the roles. And obviously, this is a huge film for him, huge character for him. But also, like, they paid him a bunch of money. He showed up and he did the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's work.
Yeah. And, well, I think that's how he treats all of his jobs, to be honest. But then they had to look elsewhere, obviously. So they begin discussions with several high-profile actresses like Cate Blanchett, Hilary Swank, Angelina Jolie, and Ashley Judd.
Okay. Oh my God, Ashley Judd, just imagine.
Honestly, I think I out of those, the one I'm like, okay, I see her is Ashley Judd, but I would love to see Cate Blanchett's Clarice Starling.
When you said that, I was just like, ooh. I could do a Cate Blanchett, or I could do a Kate Winslet.
Really? Oh, I could definitely do a Kate Winslet. Oh my God, yes. But it was when Julianne Moore's name came up that Anthony Hopkins finally chimed in, because he had worked with her on the 1996 bomb of a biopic, Surviving Picasso, so he put in a good word for her, and she was hired for a reported $3 million salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as we said, she's not the lead of this movie, but that feels like it is. It's still Julianne fucking Moore.
Well, but here's the thing, though. She hadn't got an Oscar nomination yet.
Right.
Like, I think that would actually come the next year with Far From Heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something like that. But either way, I mean, she was known mainly for, I mean, yeah, we have, Shortcut, Safe, Boogie Nights, Big Lebowski.
Nights. Yeah.
But again, like, Big Lebowski was a flop. Magnolia, I guess, was her big one. But that was, quote unquote, it before Hannibal.
Yeah, and I guess many of those, like, some of those movies are big for her, but they're not big movies. And then other movies are big movies, but they're ensembles.
Well, and the year after this, I was right, is both Far From Heaven and The Hours.
Oh my God.
I know.
A combination of my favorite Julianne Moore performances.
Y'all, if y'all have not seen The Hours, like, because the cover looks very boring, it is, no.
It won a fuck ton of Oscars.
I avoided watching The Hours for so many years because I just thought it looked so dull. And I finally watched it in college and I bawled my eyes out. I love The Hours so much.
Oh my God. Now, okay, because you just said that and because of what you just said about Cinderella Man, now you have to go and watch Cinderella Man because you probably completely misjudged it.
Oh my God. But see, though, like The Hours has Julianne Moore and Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. And also, Toni Collette has a really good scene in that movie.
Mm-hmm. It's a very female-driven film.
Yes.
Sure.
And Cinderella Man, I'm assuming, is going to be the Russell Crowe show. And you know how I feel about Russell Crowe.
He's your favorure?
I don't like Russell Crowe. His presence makes me not want to see a movie.
Wow.
I know. I think it's because you're gonna laugh at this. My dad, every time we brought him up, my dad was like, "Well, he has BO."
What?
I guess he read in some magazine somewhere that Russell Crowe stinks. I don't like literally stinks. But also he abuses people with phones, so it's fine.
Well, there is that too. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we get Julianne Moore, $3 million. There you go. Gary Oldman's involvement was kind of back and forth, and like he had like left the project at some point, but then agreed to come back as long as they didn't credit him, a la like the Kevin Spacey in Seven effect.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's what happens. But weirdly enough, the De Laurentiis announced Gary Oldman's involvement at a press conference in Florence just before the start of shooting, and it really pissed Gary Oldman and his entire team off.
Oh my God. De Laurentiis he's off in his own world making movies, and then there's the rest of us who are over here, like, actively making them and consuming them.
Now, by the way, because the book doesn't come out yet, and so the book comes out in June of 1999 and gets mixed reviews, but it sells super well. So
much. The number 2 bestseller of the year.
Yes. The first printing sold 1.3 million copies, pushing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets off the top of the bestseller list, and yes, became the second highest best-selling novel of 99, which I thought it was really funny because I was like, Chamber of Secrets? Because 99 was the year Prisoner of Azkaban came out, but like in, I guess, June of 99, Chamber of Secrets, which had been out for a year, was still in the top of the charts.
Yeah. Oh, the happy days when we could still enjoy Harry Potter, and now you just can't touch it with a 10-foot pole because of the transphobia.
God. I just watched The Boy Next Door recently, and like J-Lo like full out like talks about how good J.K. Rowling is, and I was like, man, this hasn't aged well.
Yeah, no. Honestly, fucking fire that woman into the sun.
Yeah. What did Pedro Pascal call her? A heinous loser?
Yeah. Oh God, I love the way he talks about her.
Yes. But okay. Filming of Hannibal begins in May of 2000 and lasts for 16 weeks.
Okay.
They begin filming on location in Florence before moving to Washington, D.C. in June, and then on to Richmond, Virginia for the fish market sequence, and then Orange, Virginia for the pig stuff, and Asheville, North Carolina for Mason Verger's estate.
Okay. Interesting.
Well,
different locations than expected.
Yes, but also all of this is on location, so that $87 million budget this movie has makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if we would still do it the same way. Because I remember thinking this movie is going to be huge, but also it's not a cheap affair.
No, it's not. So, okay. It comes out February 9th, 2001, nearly 10 years to the day after The Silence of the Lambs was released on Valentine's Day in 1991.
Nothing says romance like Hannibal Lecter.
Well, but here's the thing, though, because Hans Zimmer does the score for this, and there's conversations between him and Ridley Scott, and they talk about how the theme is really meant to be almost kind of like a romance of sorts.
Well, you said gothic romance earlier, so
yeah, that's
tracks.
True. Yeah, I will say, though, I do love Hannibal's theme in this movie.
Okay.
The little...
Don't remember it at all.
I think it's piano or something, but it's just do.
Sure.
It ends the film. Okay. Anyway, it earned $58 million on its opening weekend.
Cha-ching.
This is wild. Okay, so it's the number one movie. And it breaks several records. So at the time, this was the third biggest debut ever behind The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Star Wars Episode 1.
Oh my God. Truly a time capsule. What a difference a couple of decades makes.
2001, $58 million, third best opening weekend of all time. Whoa. It went on to surpass Scream 3 to have the highest debut in February.
How dare.
A record that would be surpassed by The Passion of the Christ in 2004.
Oh, God. Wow. We're just talking about all the problematic people today, aren't we?
Hannibal also had the largest opening weekend for an R-rated film ever, beating Scary Movie, which was the previous record holder.
Oh, okay. Scream and Scary Movie toppled.
That record would be beaten by The Matrix Reloaded in 2003.
A good trans narrative. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. But again, didn't remember this. Hannibal spent 3 weeks at number 1 in the domestic box office. So,
okay,
word of mouth didn't hurt this movie.
I think people honestly were just excited to see these characters and some actors back. And I remember thinking, oh, they got Ridley Scott. This is going to have prestige attached to it.
I guess so, but the drops couldn't have been that much. I mean, I guess it dropped 48% or 49% each weekend, so nearly 50. But staying on the number 1 spot, here's the thing: it makes $58 million at first weekend, $33 million second weekend.
That's big, man.
Yeah, and then $15 million that third weekend, where it's still in the number 1 spot.
What's funny, too, because I find, especially when it comes to the way that genre gets covered, and we had an interesting conversation in our Patreon episode about Sinners and how there's that intersection between race and genre that's produced some iffy results in mass market coverage. But think about the way that horror movies often get talked about. Anything around 50% drop between weekends is covered oh my God, something's going on with this horror movie. But people don't think of the Hannibal Lecter movies as horror films.
No, and I would argue that especially the last act of Hannibal is giving you Italian giallo, which I don't think American audiences were prepared for.
No, but apparently they were eating it up, pop the lid off that head and just go to town.
There is footage of the an LA screening, maybe the premiere of Hannibal, but it's the industry, all the actors are there. They have this interview with James Woods talking about it.
Oh God, we're back to trans.
I know. But they show the Krindler brain scene and the audience reactions to it, and there's so much laughter. But laughter when they're when he's saying, when Hannibal's talking back to him, but when he eats the brain, it's actually really fun to watch.
Oh, nice. I mean, I feel like that scene does what it needs to do.
Yeah. So Hannibal ends its box office run with $165 million domestically, so double its budget, and $186 million internationally, which might be the Italy of it all. But
wow.
It ends its worldwide gross with $351 million.
Yeah, this was big. This is a big-ass movie.
It was the third highest grossing film in the U.S. of 2001, behind only Lara Croft Tomb Raider and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Again, just a different fucking world.
And the 10th highest grossing film worldwide. And if that wasn't enough money, it apparently made over $87 million in home video sales.
There we go.
So
back when the video rental market was still big,
wild,
sales, obviously,
well, still, but I mean, this was, a bona fide hit, and it made more money than Silence of the Lambs. I mean, of course, put inflation in for that, but still, I think even for that, it toppled it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is what you get from 10 years of goodwill, right? People can quibble with whether this is a good movie. You're going to tell us how it was actually received critically in a moment. But at the end of the day, this movie made a fuck ton of money. So they made some right decisions.
Yeah. And this is actually the last thing I have because, critical reaction was, I'm going to say mixed.
Just like the book.
But here's the thing, though. We're looking at a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. With an average score, though, of 5.1 out of 10. So again, right down the middle.
Right down the middle, yeah.
Letterboxd users, meanwhile, have given it a 3.3 out of 5 or a 6.6 out of 10.
Okay. I'm curious, where do you fall for this?
I'm probably on a 3 out of 5. It's a movie that I admire a lot of it, but this is not the sequel I wanted for this movie. I think honestly, it really is the handling of the Clarice Starling character that just really grinds my gears. Yeah. The Hannibal stuff is good. I don't even care that Hannibal and Clarice are separated up until the last 30 minutes of the movie.
That's fine. Yeah.
But I really every time I go back to Clarice, I'm like, this is just so depressing.
And it's kind of boring.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I would be super curious to hear from people if they had their first exposure to these characters with this movie. Didn't see Silence of the Lambs, didn't see Manhunter, and was this is your first Hannibal Lecter film. This is your first Clarice Starling film. That would be very interesting because I wonder if they would have anywhere near the same problems. Because I find Julianne Moore's performance, it's not bad, but it's very much this is not my Clarice Starling.
Yeah, I think it's a serviceable performance, but I also don't think she's given much to work with.
Oh, God, no. She gets fuck all to do.
I don't think this is Julianne Moore's fault in any shape, way, or form. I think it's absolutely the writing. But and a part of me is kind of God, honestly, if you just cut Clarice out of this movie and just made it the Patsy and the Mason Verger stuff, that's probably a better, more cohesive film for me.
Yeah, no, what actually works better for me is if you would swap out Clarice and you put in Will and, oh, wait, I'm just talking about season 3 of Hannibal.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I got, Joe.
Okay, let's kick this shit off because we need to talk about a very important returning character. Not really, but I do like the fact that we managed to bring back Frankie R. Faison as Barney, our orderly.
Oh, I kind of like that. Just because it's okay, you're coming into this movie to see Hannibal and Clarice, so give him Barney.
Well, there's a world that they built out in that first film, right? And we're not going to do Chilton because the insinuation is that we killed him after the end of the first film. So what other way to kind of bring people back in and say, yeah, that world that we built in that first film, it continued. These characters continued to have lives, including somebody like Barney, even if the Baltimore Psychiatric Institute went tits up.
Which, that's actually the one deleted scene that I wish we could have gotten because...
Oh, okay.
Basically, it's later in the film when Clarice goes to Barney to get that X-ray or whatever, and I feel like there's not really a lot like showing you where she how she gets there. There's an entire scene where she goes back to the rundown Baltimore facility.
Okay,
and she's looking through files. She has voiceover. She can hear Hannibal and her talking.
Oh my God, the amount of time that it's just Julianne Moore listening to tapes in this movie.
Oh, it's wild.
It's wild.
But but we get flashbacks. She hears his voice, and we get a flashback to Barney telling her not to get into the glass. She encounters an unhoused person who scares her, which I think is meant to be a kind of a callback to the Minx part of Silence of the Lambs.
Right. Yeah.
And she sees the auction items of Lecter's memorabilia on the computer, which is what leads her to Barney. But I can only assume the reason this was cut is because it's directly calling back to Silence of the Lambs, and I don't think they want you to be reminded of Jodie Foster's performance in that movie. I'm willing to bet that was probably the number one reason. And then the second piece is probably just
this is an over 2-hour movie, so they probably thought,
well,
okay, we just need to get her to Barney, so we can cut out that piece for pacing.
Well, here's the thing, though. Again, as much as I hate what they do to Clarice in this movie, there's not enough Clarice in this movie. So you're just cutting out more scenes of her. And again, in a scene where it's, I would argue, kind of important, where she's like reliving her past experiences with Hannibal.
Yeah, because so often the rest of the time just, okay, I'm not going to say it's bad, but there's just truly a lot of scenes of her sitting on a couch, sitting in her shitty office in the basement again. And it's giving Julianne Moore nothing to work with because it's all Anthony Hopkins' vocal performance. And she doesn't even react because Clarice is kind of
stone-faced.
Yeah, she does not give a lot of emotion in this movie for the most part. So it's just a lot of like, oh, okay, well, Anthony Perkins is here and we're technically looking at Clarice, but she's kind of just vacant.
I mean, I would argue even when she gets stuff to do, like, it's just like, she's a very passive character. Even though she does a lot, I just feel like a lot of the plot is happening to her.
That is true. Okay, since we're technically talking about Clarice, allow me to introduce the first of several mini games, Trace. Okay, so this one I have called Taking Over, because yes, as we have discussed at length now, Julianne Moore took over the role of Clarice from another actor. She's done this before, and I would like you to tell me the other time or times.
Oh, God. Julianne Moore stepping in for someone. Oh, boy.
It doesn't have to be a direct sequel or continuation. It could just be somebody else played this role in a different film.
Okay, because I was like, are we talking about Jurassic Park when she basically takes over the Laura Dern role?
No.
Okay.
I did consider that, but no.
Like, the role is the same, is what you're saying.
It's a character who was played by a different actor in a previous film.
Is it The Hunger Games?
No. Here, let me give you a hint for at least one.
Oh, there's more than one.
Tabitha!
Oh, Carrie. Okay.
There we go. Okay. So now there's one more.
I have no idea. What is it?
You previously mentioned it earlier on this episode. Mr. Block wrote a book about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was really thinking sequels.
I told you not to think sequels.
I know. I couldn't get it in my head. It's Psycho. Yes, it's Psycho. Taking over Lila Crane from Vera Miles.
Yes. Technically, she also has another movie where she plays one of 4 different versions of Gloria Steinem, but that's not taking over the role from somebody. They're all in the same film. So,
okay.
Yes. Carrie, this, and Psycho.
Okay.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Okay, so, yes, I did mention we opened with Barney and then we jumped ahead because, we had other things that we wanted to talk about, but we should note that we actually are introduced to our villain, quote unquote, in this first scene. So Barney is consulting with Mason Verger, who, as he mentioned, is played by Gary Oldman, although, I'm curious. I don't know if you would have known who Gary Oldman was at this point if you were younger, but do you think that this makeup is so convincing that you can't identify him?
I do, and that's actually a funny anecdote about my childhood / teen years because I truly in a movie could not pinpoint Gary Oldman because I knew him and I knew the name from The Fifth Element, and so I knew him from that. But I swear to God, like I think I had seen Dracula at one point, maybe, but I feel like he just looked different in every single movie.
He's a chameleon.
He did. Yes,
yeah,
and so his characteristic is his voice. I think you can very much tell this is Gary Oldman's voice coming out of Mason Verger and all those prosthetics.
Yeah, and he's often very good at doing accent work as well. But yeah, there is something so uniquely distinct about the way he speaks, and I personally love it. Gary Oldman, such a fave.
Yeah.
I tried to find the person to credit properly for this makeup job because I do think it's really impactful. It's really good. It's not gross, but I kind of like how the movie acknowledges that he tries to wield it as something to gross people out or unnerve them because he's a fucking troll. But the best person I think to credit for this is Greg Canham, who is the special makeup artist for this film. But there's a whole team of people. I just couldn't figure out. It's like who worked with the pig stuff and who worked with this, and it's just not entirely clear. So apologies if that's not the right person, but yes, Mason Verger looks great. We do see that he is disabled in a wheelchair, so he has mobility in about one arm, and he is being presided over by his physician, Cordell, who was played by Jelko Ivanek.
I'm so glad you had to pronounce that because I've known this guy ever since Damages, and
literally, I was like, I love his name, I love this guy. Every time he shows up, I'm like, yay! Oh my god, I have to pronounce his name out loud.
Yeah. I always say Zelshko Ivanek.
Which is probably also acceptable. Yeah, it's
I have no
just
idea.
Definitely one of those like, oh, we got a lot of J's, we got a lot of dots, and yeah, fun stuff that make it basically just reconfirm I'm terrible with names. So,
it's fine.
Okay, I have interesting reads of queerness in this movie, and we partially talked about how Margot would have been a very strong queer element because that's Mason's sister in the book. She's a bodybuilder, she's a lesbian, she has this tortured past with Mason and their parents who disowned her for her queerness. Like, it's a big arc. Again, Brian Fuller does it quite well in the TV show. And then this movie just completely excludes her. And we end up giving some of her dialogue and some of her characteristics to Cordell, which is weird because I always got a queer read from this character. Like, the way that he reacts to Mason is more than I'm your physician or I'm your friend or I'm your butler or something. It's very much, I'm in love with you and I hate you for it.
Yeah, I think Cordell's such a very interesting character. And again, I haven't read the book in 20 years, so I don't really remember how he's characterized in the book. But it's definitely a character where I was like, I wish there was, in this 2 hour and 10-minute movie, I wish there was more screen time with him. So, and again, that's where there's just so much in this movie, even though not a lot really happens.
Yeah, it's weird that way. We should note, just in case people have read the book recently, Cordell is not a character in the book. He is an amalgamation of several characters. So there is a doctor character, and I think there's like a personal aide or something else who works with Mason, and they've been kind of combined into Cordell.
Yeah, with like dashes of Margot. Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Barney is here essentially telling them stories about Hannibal Lecter and Clarice. So we immediately understand that Mason is interested, less so in Clarice, more so in Hannibal. And then this transaction ends with Barney making a sale of $250,000 for the Hannibal Lecter mask.
This is actually really funny to me because I was like, okay, that mask is iconic because of the movie. Like, that has like a cultural landmark. And granted, like, yes, Barney would have been selling this and he probably been getting a lot of money from it. But like, I love that it's like the mask. Like, no, there's probably a lot of other things that would have like cost more money. I just think it's funny. It's almost like whenever they show it's not the same thing, but it reminds me of when there's a picture of an actor from a previous film in the movie, but it's like just a publicity still from the previous movie.
Yeah, that's always the funniest.
Yeah.
Okay, but question, you think there's something more iconic than the mask?
Okay, not in this world that you and I live in. I do think there's probably something more iconic in the world of the film because, I mean, I don't know, like, because he only wore that when he was out, like, had to be out, and so was there a lot of that, like, that people saw? Like, is the world? Are people in the world of this film like going apeshit over this mask?
I guess I would say yes, if only because he wore it during that like press bid when he was working with the senator. So like when he was wheeled out for the press conference or when he was transferred, he was wearing it.
Yeah, but that
so I
wasn't
think
filmed.
people would have said if you didn't know who he was and you just saw him on TV, you would be like, oh, that mask is Hannibal Lecter.
I suppose so. It's not even a gripe for me. I just think it's funny.
Oh, it's very funny. I also like this idea that Barney has been selling these different pieces of paraphernalia or memorabilia. And it's like, dude, you didn't sell that mask first? I would have thought that'd be one of the first things to go. And also, kind of kudos to him for having a bit of restraint and maybe even saying, okay, I don't know if I could ever sell the tapes because those are the big things.
Yeah, 100%. But I also, and this is something that will like just pepper Gary Oldman's performance throughout, but Verger is practically salivating over this mask. And
oh my God.
He loves to make these
oh my God
sounds.
Yes. It is, it's a lot of vocal mannerisms.
It really is. It's very upsetting.
Okay, so then we go into the piano. We've got this black and white surveillance footage of public spaces in Florence over the credits. And it's a bit hokey, but I also kind of totally fucking love it that the pigeons end up making Hannibal Lecter's face before they fly away. It's stupid and I love it.
Well, because we didn't mention like the marketing for this movie, but the poster for this movie I think is terrifying. Like it used to actually scare me as a kid because it's like, it looks like Anthony Hopkins, but it looks like a zombified version of Anthony Hopkins.
He looks wild and unhinged and bloodthirsty.
Yeah, it's the smile. The smile is very creepy.
But also, in hindsight, we should have expected that this is not going to be a Clarice-heavy text because they clearly understood who was the draw and what we needed to do to get people's butts into seats.
It's also called Hannibal, not Clarice.
It is that as well.
Or not Hannibal and Clarice.
Oh my God. It's starting to sound more like a Twilight book, but yes. Okay, speaking of Clarice, let's get reunited with her. So we are introduced to her as she is sleeping. Once again, she is surrounded by men. There's a lot of moments that do give us those callbacks to Silence of the Lambs, right? Like here she wakes up and she's completely surrounded by this all-male SWAT team doing this all-male operation where, okay, we need to catch this woman as she enters the fish market. And I think it's a really great sequence. I did see that on the physical media release, there's a whole segment about how did we film this and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's a pretty good showcase for Ridley Scott, his capacity as an action movie director. It also, unfortunately, is one of the really big tonal differences between this and Silence of the Lambs. Where like, oh, we're going action with this.
I read one review that it was like, it's weird. Like the movie tries to, sometimes, not all the time, but posit Clarice Starling as an action heroine, which 100%. Is not.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it isn't fair. Yeah, this sequence is fine. This does feel more Tony Scott than Ridley Scott to me. But yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's really showing us that Clarice is still very much in control. She's still in male-dominated spaces. She's not being trusted or believed or listened to because this whole operation goes fucking wrong because some dude decides, oh, my photo op for the mayor is more important than you actually getting this woman into custody. So we end up with a black woman named Avelda Drumgo, who is played by Hazel Goodman, taking a bunch of shots to the chest while she's got a baby strapped to it. And this is a PR fucking nightmare. And we will very quickly realize, oh, Clarice is going to fall on the sword for this.
One thing that always stands out to me, I remember when I read the book too, this really stood out because Clarice tells everyone that this woman, Avelda Drumgo, she is HIV positive and she will spit and bite if cornered, and you have to watch out when you're grabbing her because she may have a needle in her hair.
Yeah. Remember how I said that Thomas Harris just has like a bunch of things that he does not good?
Yeah.
I don't like this depiction of a racialized character. It's very, like, this movie is white.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, one of the only two characters of color apart from Barney. And, like, this is very much blaxploitation feeling. Like,
yeah, a little bit.
It's like, we could be in the 70s and we need to get these gangbangers and watch out for the spikes in their hair and their drug pushing. And you're just like, oh my God, what are we doing right now?
Also, you can't contract HIV from spit.
Nope.
So yeah, I was like, oh, okay, do your research, man. But maybe that's where we were in 2001. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Were we still doing like AIDS needles when you go to get the change out of a payphone? Was it toilet seats?
Toilet seats is totally the 80s.
Good times and 90s. It was the 90s for sure.
That's true.
Okay. So anyway, all the shit goes down and Clarice gets into a fuck ton of trouble. Do we like the moment where she goes home and cries? Is it just to humanize her, you think?
I don't care, man. It gives Julianne Moore something to emote.
Fair. Yes, actually, that's true. We don't really get to see much more than this, do we?
I do think it endears us to her, and as if we weren't already. But like, the problem is though. I mean, like, and not to say audiences are walking in being like, "All right, Julianne Moore, let's see what you got." But I do think the movie has that hurdle to cross to say, "Okay, hey, everyone, you have to buy into this new actress as Clarice," and I think this moment is good for that.
Yeah. Because even she is doing the gentle accent. It's not quite as full on as Jodie Foster did for Silence of the Lambs, but there are even times where I just feel like her vocal affectation, it doesn't feel like she's trying to do the character. It feels like she's trying to do Jodie Foster doing the character, and a bunch of it just feels ever so slightly misguided.
I think there's something to say though, where it's kind of like, okay, well, after being in the bureau for this long, she's been trying to lose her accent. So I think that's, and granted, we never get that kind of a confirmation, but that's how I always kind of read it. I
think that's maybe a little generous, but I also do agree with you because, we have to acknowledge this is a Clarice that's 10 years older. So the 10 years that have passed in real life have also passed in the span of this world. So she has assumed a much higher rank. She's much more put together and professional in the ways that we saw her growing into in Silence of the Lambs. And that's part of the reason why this arc is supposed to matter to us, because she lives and dies for the Bureau and she's a really good fucking agent. And when she has to come into contact with people like Paul Krendler, who is played by Ray Liotta, he is from the Justice Department and he just wants to find someone to blame.
I think that's something else that bothers me about the arc for Clarice in this movie is like, we're just redoing a lot of stuff we were doing in Silence of the Lambs, which is a lot of sexism. It's more overt and much meaner in this movie, but it's kind of like,
it's almost on the nose though, like to the point where in Silence of the Lambs, when you go back and rewatch it, as we talked about all those years ago, like that's really where the feminist angle is, right? Like there's the transphobia, which has not aged well, but also has been appropriated back by, the trans community. And then there's the sexist stuff, which I think feminists really naturally gravitate to. And it feels like that's still where she's at, which is too true to life, but it also just feels less subtle.
Yeah. And I guess obviously sexism in the FBI is probably never going away, but I just hate that we're just doing it again and like making it bigger.
Yeah, basically, like you could kind of say that that's the tagline for this film. It's everything from Silence of the Lambs, only bigger and louder and a little bit messier.
Not incorrect, actually.
Yeah. And to be clear, I also give this movie a 3. I enjoyed rewatching it more than I expected to. I think there's a lot of really dynamite parts in it.
Yeah.
It's not a great altogether movie. Like, I think parts of it are good and other parts of it are actively not good.
Yeah, the parts are greater than the whole.
Thank you. Yes. Also, I'd completely forgotten that Paul Krendler is the same character that we are seeing in the show, because we have been introduced to his gender-swapped counterpart in season 2, played by Cynthia Nixon. So this is the Cade Purnell character.
Yes. And if I remember correctly, like Krendler is also mentioned, or like he's a character, briefly a tertiary character in Silence of the Lambs too, or maybe even Red Dragon.
I looked this up because, you can actually see all of the different variations of the characters across all of the different texts. And I want to say you're right. Krendler has appeared in at least one of the other ones. And I just can't remember if it's Manhunter or if it's Silence.
Yeah, for the movies for sure. But I was like, I feel like he was in, oh no, he makes his first appearance in the novel, The Silence of the Lambs.
There we go. Okay. So also in this room is Agent Purcell, who is played by David Andrews. This is the guy who you get the impression he's on about the same level as Clarice. He likes her, but he's also frequently forced to give her some bad news. So he's the guy who also, tells her to go home after the Union Station debacle with Hannibal. So he basically gets called out of this meeting, and then the meeting stops. Like, this was a disciplinary hearing where Clarice was getting grilled, and then everybody gets phone calls, and we step out, we come back in, and this is where we learn that Mason Verger has called in that he has new information about Hannibal Lecter. He needs to speak to Clarice, so we're going to pause everything that we just did because she's going to get reassigned to do this. But the scene also gives us some important exposition about Mason Verger. So we learn that he is super rich, which is why everybody stopped what they were doing, because we actually care about this man. Mm-hmm. We also learn that he is a sex offender. And this, I want to say, gets about 2 lines in the movie, and it's a huge part of the book. Like, he's literally running a Catholic summer camp for children where he sexually abuses them and collects their tears to mix into martinis.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that's left out, but I found it interesting that so many, like, when I was reading plot summaries for this film, they were referring to him as a pedophile, and I was like, I don't think that's ever explicitly stated in the film. It is in the book, but it's not in this film.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go back and like really parse through the exact dialogue. They definitely say sex offender. I can't remember if they say sex offender of children. Right. But like the insinuation is definitely that he has gotten away with things because of his wealth, but otherwise he would be serving some hard time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The final piece that we learn about Verger is that he is Lecter's 4th and sole surviving victim.
Okay, so this flashback. I just have to say, Anthony Hopkins' first line of dialogue in this movie is, "Would you like a popper?"
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and apparently I went back and read through some of the parts of the book. This is how it plays in the book as well, and it's not actually poppers, it's some other kind of psychedelic. We should note it's apparently the same kind of drug cocktail he uses on Clarice in the end, which is not made evident in this film at all. But yeah, in this hazy flashback, we get to see as... we've got Mason Verger, so we've got Gary Oldman with his longer hair, and he is definitely trying to seduce Hannibal, and he is wearing a jock strap, and then Hannibal encourages him to cut up his own face with broken shards of a mirror and feed them to dogs.
I'm really glad you mentioned the visual style of this too, because this is a motif that will happen constantly throughout this film, and it's very indicative of the early 2000s, and I fucking hate it.
I don't like it either.
It is this blur effect, and again, this feels like Tony Scott too, actually.
A little bit. Maybe
like
we're just not remembering enough of Ridley Scott's action movies, but yeah, it does have a bit of a music video vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've never liked this effect, and I feel like I bring it up every time I see it.
Yeah, it really stands out in this film because we see it quite often, particularly in action sequences or sequences involving gore, and it's just not my favorite. Like, it's a visual choice that the film is making, and it doesn't work particularly well for me.
No, and it happens, as you said, a lot. But yeah. I do love, because again, we don't get a ton of Hannibal in the first 30 minutes of this movie, but I do love his matter of fact, like, try this. Try peeling off your face.
Yes. And of course, this is where we get the line that I opened the episode with, where, you know, we should note this is Clarice going to see Mason and him saying, "Oh, like, do you know my history with Lecter? Let me tell you about it." And she's like, "No, I don't need to hear that. I just need the new information." He's like, "Let me tell you about it." But he ends this by saying, "It seemed like a good idea at the time."
Yeah.
Like, there are quietly funny moments in this film.
Oh, absolutely. And most of them are coming from things around Hannibal.
And then a couple from Mason, but it's a lot of the way that Oldman is delivering the lines. Like, both he and Anthony Hopkins, I think, whether you want to say they're doing a good job, they're definitely having fun.
Oh, I was going to say, like, Hopkins is having a blast.
There is one brief moment between Clarice and Crenler that we skipped over that I just want to highlight, because I think as much as I wish Julianne Moore had more to do, I wish that Clarice was a bit more emotive or maybe got to play anything. That moment where it's basically her and him, and he's saying, you know, you're being reassigned, but he's trying to get her attention, and she's trying to get information about Mason Verger and like other stuff, and she just turns to him and she says, I wasn't speaking to you, Director Krenler. When I'm speaking to you, you'll know because I'll look at you.
Yeah, no. And those moments, that little fire in there, I'm like, oh, I wish we had, again, I wish we had more of that from Clarice in this movie, but we just don't.
We absolutely don't. No. Okay. So we're going to pivot back to this hazy flashback sequence. Clarice is sitting with Mason Verger. He's telling her about his history with Lecter. I saw a really, there's not a ton of writing about this particular property. Like, Gary Oldman is queer-coded. His obsession with Hannibal is definitely an obsession, but I would argue it kind of borders on obsessive revenge that feeds into a queerness.
Actually, that might be why they got rid of the pedophile stuff, too, in this movie, is because if he's queer-coded, do we really want to have him also be a pedophile?
Yeah. And that was actually my question, because I didn't find much actual writing about this. I didn't really find much academic writing about it, but I did find a couple of people on Reddit and some Dead Link blogs saying this movie is homophobic because it actually feels very punitive to this character of Mason Verger, where he hits on Hannibal Lecter, and Hannibal Lecter essentially disfigures him, not by his own hand, but encouraging him through psychedelic drugs to yeah. And I was like, that's an interesting read. I don't know if I fully get there. I don't read this movie as particularly homophobic, and I think because of who we're told Mason is, however fleeting that line is, we know that he's not a good dude, and I'm willing to accept that there can be queer characters that are not good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But also, I mean, that's kind of funny considering that Krenler keeps talking about Hannibal as if he's gay.
Yeah, I did see some people saying, oh, does this suggest that Krenler is actually secretly gay or also obsessed with Hannibal? Everybody in this movie very much wants to know more about Hannibal, find out where Hannibal is, be where Hannibal is. He's just an enigmatic character that people are obsessed with. But I mean, I thought it was funny that some people might suggest that Krenler is, he's trying to deflect with all of his sexualized come-ons to Clarice and all of his queer-baity comments about Lecter. I was oh, okay. I guess I never thought of it that way, but maybe.
Why not?
Sure, yeah. Okay, there's one other weird element that sort of percolates throughout this film, which is treating Hannibal or inviting this idea of redemption and sin, mixing it into religiousness and specifically Christ. So before Clarice leaves, Mason makes this comment because he deliberately turned the light on his face because he deliberately turned the light on his face when Clarice leans in to put the mic on, and she doesn't flinch. And you can tell that he either does this a lot or that he expects people to not be able to handle his physical appearance.
Right.
And when she goes to leave, he turns the light off and he says, oh, it's really interesting that you were able to look at my face, but you shied away when I mentioned God. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting piece, because he tries to suggest that he is rehabilitated because he has found religion. And of course, we will know that his religion is actually just, oh, I'm obsessed with catching Hannibal Lecter and getting my revenge.
Yeah. Admittedly, not something I picked up on a ton through this film, but I'm surprised I didn't clock this moment, actually.
Okay, well, we'll return to various other instances because, we're going to talk about some Judas. We're going to talk about some Christ-like imagery, other fun stuff.
Yeah, we get a whole art history lesson.
Oh, we truly do, yeah. Okay, so speaking of history, not of the art history kind, but in the archives, this is where Clarice learns from FBI mailboy Jeffrey, who is played by Kent Linville, that yes, all of this Hannibal Lecter memorabilia has disappeared over the years, and this eventually brings her to Barney. I do want to say, I think, again, this movie is just a little too heavy-handed. This moment where Clarice is observing Barney and she sees him rescue a pigeon, which confirms that he's still a gentle soul.
Yeah.
Okay, movie, we get it.
It's a little on the nose.
Yeah, okay. So she does confront Barney, and it's not like, hey, Barney, how you been? It's very much, you have shit, give it to me now. I want to know exactly what is going on with Hannibal Lecter.
So does he have to, 'cause she says, give me everything you got, but does this does he have to give away, because this is his source of income, does he have to give away all this stuff to her?
I mean, technically what he's doing is not fully above board, because I think this is all like medical stuff that he should not have taken out of Baltimore Psychiatric. But yeah, like, clearly this is how he was making his living.
This is when I'm just like, Clarice, like, look the other way. Like, I know you got a code or whatever the fuck, but look away. It's fine.
Well, do you get the impression she turns him in, or does she just clear him out?
Oh, no, she just clears him out. Because he even says when she gets there, which I do like, it's a little brief moment of levity where he's like, are you here to arrest me? And she's like, I have not Mirandized Barney. He's like, blah, 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 blah. Talking
yeah,
to
she
her.
says it to her purse, like she's got a recording device in there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that she's just taking it from him, but I was like, oh, that sucks, though. Like, all of his money. All of his future money.
But she needs those tapes, Trace, because she's also obsessed.
I guess he just got $250,000 from Verger, so.
I mean, yeah, he's doing okay for now. Okay, so she starts listening to the tapes. We hear the infamous comment from Silence of the Lambs where Hannibal talked about wanting a view to end his days with. And this is our transition over to Florence. But not to Hannibal Lecter, because we have to first meet Chief Inspector Ronaldo Pazzi, who is played by Giancarlo Giannini.
You got that right.
Giannini? Yeah.
30 minutes into this movie, by the way.
Yeah. What do you think about this switch over? Like, do we like this character? Do we care about him?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
I like what happens to him as a victim of Hannibal. Yeah, I think it's fun to watch him like kind of play but he's such an idiot. He's so stupid.
He's very dumb, although I'll confess I had a bit more empathy for him this go around, because I realized that much like Barney, we're sort of living in a world where a relationship with Hannibal Lecter could be fortuitous. It could be a financial windfall. So, he's dating this woman, or he's married to this woman. I've got her name and I'll say it later. But basically, he's not making enough money to satisfy her, right? Like, she talks about how she wants
to go to the opera.
Better seats than what they had last time. So I can kind of understand that he says, I've got this opportunity. I could make some quick and easy money and nobody gets hurt, because this is a person who's on the run.
Wait. Quick, yes. Easy, no.
But it's because he's underestimating Hannibal, right? Which is what people have always notoriously done.
Absolutely. And this is one aspect I remember from the book, because Hannibal, as Dr. Fell, brings it up to him in their first meeting together. But like, I feel like it's a bigger emphasis in the book that he is a disgraced police officer. So he's also trying to like rebuild his reputation here.
Yeah, there's a moment later on, I think it's their second interaction, when Hannibal basically reads him to filth, not just for, you're the descendant of this person who was a public disgrace and like basically executed publicly for people to see, which is what I'm going to do to you later in the film. But he also says, you're working a kidnapping now. Is that really a high profile case for you? Or sorry, not a kidnapping, a disappearance.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Inspector Pazzi, I mean, this is the gig, right? So he's investigating the fact that Dr. Fell has taken over for somebody else who has disappeared, and all that remains of this man are 4 very heavy suitcases. I do also think it's funny that immediately Hannibal is so combative with this guy. Like, he introduces himself, and Hannibal's just like, rah, rah, rah. Don't come for me. I'm just like, you're not laying very low now.
That's the thing. He's poking the bear, and not to say Patsy's actually a bear, because Hannibal's the bear in this scenario. But not in this scenario. But like, it's like he does these things to get his goat,
Yeah. Well, and I think it shows that Hannibal is living a very different life now that he's not behind bars anymore. He's more fully in control. He's willing to take these kinds of risks because he feels free. Like he can negotiate the space in ways that he couldn't, where he had to play the game with Chilton and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we jump back to Clarice. I do like that she gets this congratulatory letter from the Guinness World Record for being the female agent who has killed the most people.
I thought that was funny too. She doesn't react much to it. She just kind of like, well, here you go.
She's like, well, fine, fuck this, I guess. It's my cross to bear. Religious imagery. She also gets a letter from Hannibal Lecter because, we should note that when she had this sort of fall from grace, it was very public. So, she got disciplined internally, but it was also widely reported on in the press.
Yeah, this was a public hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're both on it tonight.
Yeah.
So, she gets this letter from Hannibal. She tries to trace the paper and the ink, and there's no clues, but there is an interesting smell trace.
Oh, my God.
So, we go to consult perfume experts, including Mark Margolis. So, I thought that was kind of a fun blink, and you miss it. Oh, wow, I guess this guy will do this scene.
Who is that?
He is from Breaking Bad.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he's the guy who rings the bell in the wheelchair. But, okay, so she goes to these perfume experts and they say, oh, this is actually very rare. Good catch. We'll draw you up a short list of different perfumeries that could do something like this. And they're like, it'll be on 5 figures. Like, you won't need many more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we hop back to Florence, and Patsy comes into the police station, and Clarice has followed up and said, hey, can you get me surveillance footage, like camera footage, CCTV equivalent of different perfumeries? And so Patsy sees Agent Franco Benetti, who was played by Andrea Piedmont Bodini, and he is making a tape of this perfume shop. And of course, Patsy recognizes Dr. Fell. So we started to make some connections. This man was combative, and here he is. What's going on? Why is the FBI asking?
The FBI.
The FBI. Yes. So Patsy ends up stealing this tape, and then he begins tailing Dr. Fell. So he sees that Hannibal is wiping down his glass after he eats outside.
I love that. Because just the dedication Hannibal must have to like make sure his fingerprints and lip marks and saliva DNA is never left anywhere
all the time for 10 years. It proves to us that he really is very smart and very cautious, even when he's being a bit flamboyant and extravagant and also combative.
It's just one of those things where I'm okay, like you're going into hiding, and so you go to Florence, one of the biggest cities in Italy.
Well, I mean, it's got great eating, Trace.
Of course it does. Yes, I'm sure the wine's good too.
Oh, well, yes. You would know. You were just there.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so, yes, now that we're suspicious of Dr. Fell, this is where we use our credentials to log into the FBI server. And this is a secure website that houses the FBI's 10 most wanted list, to which I said, why would you need to log in to see that?
I was more like, oh my God, Osama bin Laden's on this, and this is pre 9/11.
Okay, so this is a fun catch. I didn't get them all, but I have half of this top 10 list, Trace. So our next mini game is I'm going to read you a name, and I would like you to guess what you think they're on the list for.
Oh, God.
So you mentioned Osama bin Laden. What might he be on there for?
So, because again, this was news to me where I was like, oh my God, wait, he was on there before 9/11, which I probably should have known as a citizen of the United States, but whatever. It was a bombing somewhere, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just like general terrorism.
Yeah,
so he was a well-known figure in Al-Qaeda, so he was on the list. Okay, we have James Charles. I know, it's the name that's not helpful at all.
If he's on the 10 most wanted, it can't be just... Well, no, yeah, murder. Let's say murder.
Okay, you are correct. He was an anti-abortion sniper, so he took people out. I think he targeted a doctor outside of an abortion clinic.
Whoa.
I should note, I'm not making these up. These are real figures. So because I initially thought like, oh, we're just, probably pulling pictures of people who are from the cast and crew and putting them in here. And it's like, no, these are actual people in 2001 who were on the top 10 most wanted list.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about James J. Bugler?
Money laundering.
I mean, maybe, but probably not the main thing they were after. He was actually part of the Boston Mafia.
Okay, well, his name is Bulger, by the way.
Yeah, it's Whitey Bulger.
You said Bugler.
Oh, I told you I'm terrible with names. What do you want from me?
I think you have dyslexia.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. Or just brain fog from the pandemic. Anyway, what's interesting about this guy is that he actually ended up becoming an FBI informant.
Oh, okay. So he's not in jail anymore?
That I cannot confirm or deny.
I'm sorry. He's dead. He's dead.
I was going to say, I think most of them are actually dead.
That makes sense, actually.
Okay, last one before Hannibal Lecter. We've got Victor Manuel Garina.
Victor. That's... I was going to say terrorism. Is it terrorism?
It is not terrorism, no. He was responsible for, at the time, the largest armored car robbery of all time. He got away with about $7 million.
All right, cool. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, and then of course the one that Patsy is looking for is Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter.
Dun, dun, dun.
Looks just like Dr. Fell.
Yes, indeed he does. Okay, so yes, this is when we see his wife Allegra. I told you I would get to her eventually. Played by Francesca Neri. And yeah, she's got this expensive taste. So Patsy searches, okay, so this person is definitely wanted by the FBI. But how much money could I get for him? And Trace, the amount is $3 million. So final game of the episode. $3 million in 2001 is worth how much in 2025 money?
$5.7 million.
Ooh, close. It's 5.4.
Ah, okay. I knew it's not quite double. Also, so to get $3 million, you can either get Hannibal Lecter or star as Clarice Starling in Hannibal.
Which one is easier to do? I couldn't decide if I thought that this was low or high, and I ended up settling on high because it is a personal person. Like, it's not as if this is an organization that has raised money for information leading to the arrest of like somebody super famous. It's like, this is a private citizen offering $3 million of their own money.
It's a very rich private citizen, but also I think, and he is well aware of the difficulty involved with kidnapping or capturing Hannibal Lecter. So that to me is low.
Okay.
I'm thinking, again, even 5 minimum. But I was like, just give him $10 million, man. Maybe 5.
Yeah. 5. Well, I guess it was the equivalent of 5, just back in 2001.
Yeah, that's true. There you go.
Okay, so as folks may have realized, we're really flipping back and forth between Florence and I guess this is meant to be DC, but, we're never leaving the building, so who could know? So we're back in the basement with Clarice. This is when Krendler comes down. They spar a second time.
Whoa. But this is how stupid Krendler is. He's so immature.
Oh, yeah.
There are these hand drawings of like art that Hannibal did.
Mm-hmm.
And Krendler just wants to oogle the boobies.
He does, truly. But it's another one of these heavy-handed, all of the men in this movie, apart from Hannibal, are rude and sexist.
Yeah, and I'm just like, maybe it's the 2025 of it all, but I am so over that. And it is not a good use of this movie's screen time.
I think people would probably disagree with you because it does feel so integral to who specifically Clarice is. Mm-hmm. Now, whether you want to say, well, we've already seen this side of the story, then sure. Yeah, like this feels a little bit too repetitive.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, not to like beat a dead horse, and I mentioned this earlier, but I guess it's depressing where it's like, you already went through this, and then you got to deal with this shit again? Ugh.
Yeah, it's just with higher up men this time around. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I also, I don't know. There's parts of this movie where I just think, again, maybe it's my interpretation of who Clarice is, but she didn't strike me as a prude in the first film. Like, she seemed a bit naive and maybe idealistic, but like 10 years later, we have no sign of like, a wife or a husband or any kind of romantic sexual partner. But like, would Clarice cover up a drawing of her tits that Hannibal did with a Post-it?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird too. To get almost going to read the book again because the book is really focusing a lot more on that trauma with her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's playing, because I'm sure that's referenced a lot more.
Maybe. Yeah, we definitely still make references. Like Hannibal makes references to her dad and why she's so driven and so ambitious still, is it's still trying to prove to your father that you're better than what he expected you to be.
Oh, yeah, that speech about, he calls them like deep rollers or something. I was like, okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But yeah, so this is Paul's second go at making very sexist, offensive comments about Clarice. And I do love that she, again, calls him out because she's not going to take shit from him. But she says, Paul, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Is it that I told you to go home to your wife? Is that it?
Yeah.
So it's like he definitely tried to hit on her and get her to be like...
I mean... He says a lot of things. I mean, so there's that. This is when he brings out, like, when she rejects him, he's like, well, besides, this town is full of corn-pone country pussy.
Yeah.
And then again, like, I figured Hannibal for a queer. I love this. Not that I mean anything personal. If you've got any sympathy for those people.
Yeah. Just what a lovely human being.
And to be fair, like Ray Liotta is quite good in this movie. I think
he makes you hate him so much.
Yes, to the point where I think maybe that's why the ending, as gruesome as it is maybe it's just palatable for audiences, because
we need to hate him.
So
we need to see something so terrible happen to him.
You know what? Because you know my thing where I'm like, I really want people to know what's going on with him. I know he's alive when he's getting his brain eaten, but he's already like lobotomized basically, so he's not really understanding what's happening to him, and that always bothered me.
Yeah, but I will say, I mean, there's definitely a moment of realization where he walks into the kitchen and he sees Hannibal.
Yeah, and he gets knocked out immediately.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's fine.
That's fine. Okay, so right after the scene, Clarice ends up calling Florence because she says, I haven't received the videotape yet. And I thought that this was actually a stronger example of what we just saw with Krendler, because she's talking to, it's Benetti, the guy who was making the videotape for her. And as he's talking to her, he's drawing a nude interpretation of what he assumes she looks like. And again, you're just like, ugh, these fucking men. Yeah. But then when she hangs up the phone and says like, thank you so much, send me another video, I need it right now, we see that she's been drawing him, and she's drawn this really stereotypically Italian caricature of like him with a big mustache. So I kind of like that this is, she can give it as good as she gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was quite funny, actually.
Okay, so let's get back with Patsy. He calls this number, and we end up doing a bunch of like phone tag stuff. You know, he hangs up, they call back. It's clearly going between different places and different numbers. And he is told that in order to get a down payment of the fee, he will need to provide a fingerprint to confirm that it is Dr. Lecter. So... he thinks that he can do this pretty easily because he will pick up those suitcases that the predecessor of the doctor has. So he goes, and we're making small talk. This is where we get all of the past history about who Patsy's ancestor was. Yeah. And I mean, if you know what's coming, it's very much like, oh, buddy, we are foreshadowing your imminent death here.
I do like all these scenes with Hannibal. I really do enjoy, and the dramatic irony of this, because I feel like Hannibal already knows what's going on.
I think so, because, and again, it could just be that he's being very cautious, but there's even this moment where, as they're having this conversation, Lecter goes into the kitchen and he puts on gloves before he handles the suitcase, because that's what Patsy was going to get the fingerprint off of. And again, this could just be Hannibal, every time I eat out, I wipe down the glass, but it could, I think it's, I know what he's trying to do, and I'm going to circumvent it.
And that's the thing, is like he could kill him right here, but he wants to play with his food before he eats it.
He truly does. And that's why I think we do all this stuff with the ancestor and, isn't it a bit of a downgrade that you're looking into this disappearance and so on. But yeah, I mean, I like this idea that Patsy is from a line of men who were discredited, who were dishonored, and then they were brutally killed. Mm-hmm. It's kind of fun. Okay, so, and then we get this very Hannibal Lecter joke that the bags are heavy as bodies. Ha ha ha. Okay, so because he didn't get the fingerprints, Patsy has to hatch a new plan. So he purchases a silver band at the market, and then he blackmails pickpocket Noko, who is played by Enrico Loverso. And then we get this, I'm going to say this is one of my favorite sequences in the film. Mm-hmm. It's like a heist movie, miniaturized, but we get to watch as Hannibal clocks Noko. Noko thinks that he's doing such a good job covertly following this slightly elderly man who is an art historian, and it ends very badly for Noko.
I think he tried to stab me in the crotch, but he missed, and it's like, oh, we got your femoral artery, dude. Like, you are dying.
Yeah. And we really get to see what Patsy is made of, too, because he essentially kills Noko by forcing him to bleed out from this wound and preserving the bracelet, because we did get a fingerprint, so it goes into the plastic baggie and we're good to go. And then we're back to being on the nose, Trace, because we wash our hands clean in this public fountain, which is a pig. It's like, come on, movie. Stop.
Yeah, Ridley Scott's like, whatever, man.
Truly, yeah. But then it all happens very quickly, right? Like, we've got the band, and then we just cut to Mason getting confirmation about the identity, and he calls his employee, Carlo, who was played by Ivano Mariscotti, and we will quickly see that this is a breeder of giant carnivorous hogs.
Which is such... I know this is a book carryover, but like this is such a weird thing to put in this movie.
It is wild. Yeah. Like, I mean, we definitely heard of carnivorous pigs and how you can kind of train them because they are actually very, very intelligent. Like, I feel like it's not the rarest thing we've seen in horror movies. It just feels like such a dastardly plan. I would almost assume it would be more appropriate for something like a Hammer horror villain.
A little bit, or just really, really rich people.
Well, I mean, that is who Mason is, right? He's been planning for this moment. I think we get a year count in the book, but everything makes it very clear that Mason has been planning for this for quite some time because,
because his event took place before Silence of the Lambs.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's been a while.
So it's been 10 years at minimum.
Also, I know I keep calling them pigs, everyone. They are Russian boars, but they're pigs.
Okay. Well, I will call them boars for the remaining of the episode then. Okay, so we get the down payment because the identity was confirmed, so Patsy can take Allegra to the open-air opera.
Oh my God.
But of course, Lecter is definitely playing with his meal here because we are side-eyeing this man throughout the entire performance, and then we're approaching him and his wife after, and, it's, we're so gracious, we're making this lovely connection with Allegra, and Hannibal just happens to only be speaking in food imagery.
I wrote in my notes, like, all caps, Patsy, take the money and run. Like, you have $100,000. It's not $1 million. It's not $3 million, but just fucking take it and go. Invest it.
Like, literally, Patsy, your name is Patsy, and you are one for Mason Verger. You are about to get murdered. Okay, back in the States, Clarice sees that Patsy has been logging into VICAP files, so she calls him because she also sees Lecter on the tape because it has finally arrived from the perfume store. So she calls Patsy, she warns him because she's pretty sure she knows exactly what he's fucking up to because he's terrible at this.
He's so bad at lying. Like,
he's
this
really
is
bad.
Like, dude, like, come on.
And then he just hangs up.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, I got this.
I do
it's an elderly man. I could do it.
I do love that beat though. The little beat. It's like, you're trying to catch him yourself, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at you trying the accent. It's not bad. I liked it. Okay, so in the museum, Dr. Lecter has been impersonating or putting on this character of Dr. Fels. So this is actually his job interview lecture that he's giving, and Patsy comes in the middle of it. But yes, Trace, we do get a whole segment on Judas's death, and it's very similar to the way that Patsy's ancestor was killed, where you get thrown off a balcony with your entrails dangling
and
out.
I think I didn't mention this because I didn't think it was like important, but now that we're bringing the Judas into it, I was like, because before he pays the pickpocket, there's a shot of or actually maybe it's before he calls Verger for the ransom money,
Right.
but there's a shot of Patsy like just standing by the payphone, and like the whole the audio is muted except for the sound of the coins jangling in Patsy's hand.
Yes.
And I think that's I'm assuming it's meant to link to the coins paid to Judas to betray Jesus.
Judah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's who this character is meant to be, and that is the fate that he will receive in just a couple of moments. Yeah, so Patsy has basically coordinated with Carlos and a couple of other men who have arrived in Florence. So he's going to go in, he's going to lure Dr. Lecter out in, under this auspice of we're going to go for drinks after your big presentation. And then Carlo and the guys will nab him. And of course, Lecter knows exactly what's happening, so he doesn't even wait. Like, we don't even get outside. So we're doing a lot of knocking people out with chloroform in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with Patsy. He wakes up and he is fully tied to this kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's a thing that can go upstairs to carry heavy weights because, of course, if you're moving statues, say.
It's almost like a vertical gurney or like a dolly of some sort.
Yeah.
But the trailer line, that I'm giving very serious thought to eating your wife. Love that.
It's really good. You can tell that Anthony Hopkins is just really, he's eating these lines up.
Yeah, I see what you did there, but yes, he is. But, okay, 77 minutes into this movie, Clarice and Hannibal finally speak over the phone.
Yeah, because she's so concerned that she has called Patsy to say, I've alerted your boss, you're going to thank me later, but at least you'll be alive. And of course, she's actually talking to Hannibal because Patsy's about to die. And yeah, what do you think of this? It's quite brief, but I feel like it gets the job done.
Oh, yeah. It's the thing where, because I read reviews and this was singled out as one of the more gruesome moments of the film. Of course, the other being the brain stuff. But I like a lot of this. I think it doesn't feel like Silence of the Lambs, I guess.
No.
But I mean, like we're hanging this guy and his intestines are spilling out onto the cobblestone of Florence.
It's also a little delightful when Hannibal says,
"Bowels in or bowels out."
Yeah. Oh, you want me to pick? Okay. And of course, he would pick the more extravagant, outlandish, operatic, you might even say. And the fact that we do this, there's a bunch of scenes of it. This isn't an empty piazza, right?
No.
Like, there's a bunch of Japanese tourists who are getting some kind of tour around. So, I mean, I think my absolute favorite moment of this is the slow motion shot of these guts hitting the street with a kind of wet splat.
Yeah. I mean, again, I really would have loved to have seen this in the theater back in the day, just to witness, again, a lot of people that wanted to go see the sequel to that really prestigious Academy Award-winning crime thriller.
Oh, yes.
Then get this.
Yep. Yeah. We mentioned Grand Guignol when we were talking about the feast last week, and that's definitely what this feels like. I said operatic, and it feels a little bit like the kind of thing that you might have seen in the days of yore in Italy, right? In Greece, like these big tragedy performances where, this person thought they could get away with it and it cost them their life. But it's also just really gross and wet and gory. And that was the big thing that I remember from the reviews and the criticisms, because they were kind of one and the same, is people saying, oh my God, Ridley Scott is kind of debasing himself with this. Like, why is he giving us just this absolute splatterfest of a movie?
I thought it was interesting that the violence in the film was often used against it in reviews, because
people don't want to think of it as a horror film.
No. And so it's interesting where I'm just kind of like, but then like look at the TV show Hannibal, where it's like, oh, that was like what people were praising about it.
Yeah, and truly, I wonder how much of it is just an additional amount of distance from that, because it's more than 10 years to get to Hannibal the TV show. Right. I think a lot of people can excuse the gore in that show because Brian Fuller has done such a good job of making it visually appealing, whereas here this does feel shocking, right? Like shock for maybe shock's sake.
Yeah, which I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. I think the other big thing is just people said, oh, well, this isn't my Silence of the Lambs, so I can't accept it.
Sure.
Like, where's the classiness? This is aimed at degenerate horror fans. Okay, so guts on the street. We have Carlo's men who run in. Lecter takes out one of them, Matteo, who's played by Fabrizio Giafuni, and it's another one of those shitty slow-mo video editing things where the guy just eats shit across like an entire thing of chairs.
I wrote this down too. I was like, I said in all caps again with this blur effect as he falls.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me.
I get it for the flashback to Mason Verger, but when we're doing it like in these action scenes, I'm like, what? Why? It feels like you're trying to hide like bad staging or bad blocking.
Yeah, I don't get it because I'm with you. You know, it works for me in the flashback because we're also doing drugs. Like, we're high.
Right.
I'm trying to get into Mason's headspace as he's cutting his own fucking face off. And here I'm just like, no, this dude just got his throat slit.
Yeah.
Why can't you just let him fall? I don't know.
I think we do get a shot of like the blood pouring out of his neck after he falls, but like,
we do.
Still.
Yeah, it's just the action. Like, it's as if we're afraid to just shoot the action.
Maybe Anthony Hopkins didn't want to have a stunt double and he couldn't actually really do a lot of the action stuff. So he was like, can you just blur it and we'll be good?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, so we hop back to the States as we watch both Clarice and Mason watch the surveillance footage of Lecter waving from the balcony. And I should clarify, they're not watching it together. They are watching it independently.
No. I'm also just thinking for Hannibal, I mean, clearly he has a whole plan and stuff, but I'm just like, oh my God, dude, like now you're found and you're going to go back to the US, like uplift your whole fucking life that you built here. Like, oh God, it sounds so busy.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But you also get the impression, like, I thought it was mildly amusing that he's posing as Dr. Fell and he's having to go through all of these hoops just to get a job as an art historian. Part of me was like, man, have a bit more self-respect or Hannibal fucking Lecter.
I mean, he's trying to lay low, but he must have money somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, so we see Clarice running, and this is where Mason starts to move into the next stage of his plan. So he wonders whether Lecter is actually in love with Clarice. So I think this is also the screenplay trying to plant some seeds, maybe. But Mason confides to Cordell that the thing that they need to do to lure Lecter to where they need him to be, to trap him essentially, is to put Clarice in distress, and that will make her more attractive.
Which is just the bait. Just using her as bait. Just say that.
Just stop being so fancy about it. Just say what you mean. Yeah.
Break the hook, Cordell.
Truly, yeah. Okay, so part of this plan will involve using that cocksucker, Krendler. So we basically frame Clarice, and she is put on administrative leave or she is suspended. I didn't catch the language, but essentially she's let go from the FBI.
It's all very unfair, and it's just like, oh God, I hate it.
I do love that all it takes is Mason faking writing some kind of postcard, and then we plant it, and Krendler's just like, look at her! She's been withholding evidence! She's a liar!
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, this feels so much like a plot contrivance. It's like, okay, like...
Oh God, yeah.
Clarice's supervisors are not in any shape, way, or form on her side, and it is...
No.
And, I guess that's the other thing we should mention, because Jack Crawford is not a character in this movie.
No, it's Noonan, director Noonan.
There is a deleted scene in which it's I think the first letter Hannibal sends Clarice. There's a longer cut of it.
Okay.
And he says, "Oh, I was so sad to hear about Jack Crawford's death from cancer or something."
Oh, which is probably where we then get Bella's storyline for the TV show.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Okay, interesting. So we've talked a little bit about Julianne Moore's performance in here. I have to say my least favorite part is when Krendler, like, basically she figures out that it's a conspiracy and he's behind it and he's being paid. And she calls him on it very publicly in this meeting with director Noonan. And he says something about like, well, would you swear to it? Or like, blah, blah, blah. And she just turns to him and she goes, swear me, you swear too. And I think it's terrible.
It's not, okay. At first I was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking? Oh, yes. Because it's the only time she like really yells in this movie. And
it just isn't good. It's bad.
It's there. It exists.
Okay, so Clarice definitely gets thrown under the bus again publicly. Like he goes out, like Krenler holds a press conference and names her and says she's done. So this is obviously to just get Lecter to come in, and because he hears about her and now she doesn't have a role in the FBI anymore.
And again, I love this because while Krenler's doing this little interview press conference thing, we're also following Hannibal through a kind of a mini montage as he's going shopping for cooking utensils, stealing a body from the morgue. Yeah, like stealing.
Oh my God, when he locks that morgue attendant in like the freezer, I giggle. Yeah. It's so funny to me.
But again, it's at this point we're kind of like, well, what's he doing? Because you don't
know
what
is he doing?
But now you're like, oh, he's preparing for Krenler.
He is. And we even see him sneak into Krenler's house when he goes for a bike ride. What do we think of this scene where he intimidates the dog?
I think it's fine. I mean,
okay.
So when I saw it, I was kind of, oh, this is kind of neat. But I think the only reason it's here is so that it shows,
anticipates the boars.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, because they don't really go into a ton of detail in the movie. In the book, it's quite clear that we have trained the boars to attack people in part just, if you see people, eat them, but also they are attracted by fear. So if you scream, if you give off any kind of pheromones that you are fearful of them, they will attack you. So we very clearly see here that Lecter doesn't give off any kinds of vibes like that. He is not acting out of fear around animals. So this dog is actually more afraid of him.
Got it.
Yeah, it's fine. I think this is a little hokey. I like it better with the boars later.
Yeah.
Okay, so Clarice is still listening to her tape. She's drinking a little bit because she's been let go. She's got her sad, oh, I've been fired. Here's my box from the office thing. But she's still listening. She's still listening to those tapes, and she blacks out. And we see that Lecter has broken in. And we now kind of enter into another fun heisty bit, and this is where I get back on the movie's side. Like I'm fully invested because all of a sudden it's Lecter calling Clarice and giving her orders.
Well, that's because though, the whole movie's been built. This movie's been edging us on a Clarice and Hannibal reunion, and so now it's like, okay, they're not exactly together, but they're talking. They are conversing with each other, and it injects such an energy into this movie that not to say the movie hasn't been energetic before this, but it was missing this specific kind of energy.
I mean, definitely energy for Clarice, which I still don't really ever think she gets above about a 4 or a 5 in the film. But this moment where he says, okay, your charger is about to die. You've got 30 seconds to replace it and I'll call you right back. Are you ready? Go. And it's fun. Like, it's a fun moment where you suddenly realize, oh, maybe she has been kind of missing this level of action because she was very cool under pressure in the fish market scene. And here she kind of comes alive a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a taste. And it's not enough, but I know. And it's not enough, but it's there.
It is there, yeah. So he says, okay, come to a face-to-face meeting at Union Station, get in the car, keep the line open. I'm going to be talking to you. I'll be directing you. And he's asking her, like, hey, how have you been? Notice that you don't have a husband or kids. How are you feeling about being kicked to the curb by the FBI and all this other stuff?
Mommy and daddy.
He also mentions that she has shapely feet. And again, this feels like we're anticipating the fact that he is romantically or sexually attracted to her. And it's a no for me.
That's the thing, though. Like, by the end of this movie, it's clear that he is.
He is. Like, he forces a kiss on her. But maybe it's that these two don't spend any time together. So even though we're supposed to know the characters have a relationship, the actors don't, but like there's nothing happening between Julianne Moore and Anthony Hopkins.
Well, I'm just saying they should have left that scene in where he licks her steering wheel.
I mean, it would have kept the weird for sure.
I mean, like legit, like I was working while I was watching these scenes, and this happened, and I just dropped my pen when I was doing it. And I was like, "Whoa!"
Okay, I'm not seeing that every day. Okay, so she gets to the station and she tries to warn him that Mason is coming for him. He doesn't seem at all worried or concerned. He does notice that she has been tailed, which she absolutely has been, because she's apparently a terrible FBI agent.
Well,
yeah. So she's trying to trace his whereabouts without letting on to these guys that are following her, looking for him. And we end with this photo booth moment where she discovers he's left shoes and a dress for her. And then he gets tasered outside and abducted by Carlos and a couple of new guys.
I think too, this is always like a disappointing moment for me, because I was like, what? I don't buy that Hannibal would have been like fooled by this, or not like predicted that this was coming, you know?
Yeah, it would have been more believable if he anticipated this and actually let himself be caught so that he could just deal with Mason.
I think the idea is supposed to be that Clarice is his weakness. So when she's involved, like, his guard is not...
He's distracted.
But again, I still don't buy that.
He's too busy riding the carousel and grazing her hair in slow motion.
It's a cool shot, but every time I'm just like, you're about it's a carousel. You're gonna come back around.
Mm-hmm. No, it's movie magic. It's one pass only, and then I'm just completely gone. It's magic. Yeah, it's stupid. I hate it. But okay, so he gets tased, and I do just have in my notes, sidebar, Clarice fucking warned you.
Yeah, a little bit.
So she gets ordered home by Pearsall. This will be the last time that we see him, but he still kind of seems on her side, at least enough to listen to her that, okay, this is probably Mason Verger's work, so let's check out his house. But of course, Mason Verger is kind of smart, and he has Carlos looking after Hannibal off the property, and as soon as the FBI clears out, then let's bring him in, and let's get this roast started.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay, so Clarice has not given up, though, so she drives her car through the cattle on Mason's property.
I wrote in my notes, I was like, Clarice drives to Verger's, I guess? I think that's where this is? Sure?
Yeah. Like, time and space is also magical, apparently, because we can just get there, and it's totally easy and very doable, and Mason has no security. Like, she just drives around the back, and that's why there's cows.
I forgot to mention too, one line Hannibal gives to Clarice whenever they're on the phone together. He's like, have you had the pleasure of meeting Mason face to face, so to speak?
Rude. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, okay, let's get to more Christ imagery, because we've definitely got Hannibal Lecter barefoot on this cross-like forklift.
Dude,
the arms are out. How do you not see it?
It's all because he's not up against. Well, I was saying he's not up against a wall, but I was like, wait, Christ wasn't up against a wall. He was in the middle of like a field there, on top of a hill or whatever. But okay, yeah, I'm seeing it. But you said redemption arc when it comes to Hannibal. Do you think this film was offering a redemption arc for him?
Well, I think it's exploring the idea of different types of villainry, right? So by proximity to Mason Verger, Hannibal Lecter doesn't look that bad. And then he tries to make this claim, in this final sequence with Clarice, where he says, why can't you just let me run free? Let me fly kind of deal. And I think it's that the film, and by extension, even The Silence of the Lambs, wants us to secretly root for him, as if to say, well, he's bad, but he's not that bad. And don't you want him to end up with Clarice? Like, the gothic romance of it all. Don't you want her to be on the plane or leave on this boat off the dock with him?
Well, so because here's the interesting thing, because the movie, there's one other big aspect of the book that the movie eschews, and that is that of Hannibal's younger sister Misha, who was killed.
Yes,
and a big part of the book is like, and Clarice, I think, vocalized this at one point, where he keeps wanting Clarice to be his dead sister, which makes the sexual nature of the relationship more disturbing.
Yeah, and I think even in the book, if I read it correctly, part of what he's trying to do with these psychedelic drugs and the treatment is he's absolutely trying to get rid of some of the PTSD that Clarice has from her dad and, all the shit with the lambs.
Right.
But I think
those lambs.
But I think she also says, like, is there a way for you to bring your sister back through me? Like he's trying to create an almost unholy union. But yeah, I mean, he's got this whole backstory of like, that's partially where the cannibalism comes from, is because he saw his sister get eaten by these guys who were deserters in the army. Yeah. And obviously, if you watch Hannibal Rising, that's basically the whole story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess I just picked it up that it does seem like we're having a lot of conversations about religion between the Judas, the art history stuff, and then there's this kind of imagery. There's Mason talking about how he's been rehabilitated through his connection to religion, which is, of course, a lie. Like, Mason is absolutely a liar and a bit of a troll.
Right.
But even the way that people seem to be led by Hannibal, like he becomes this kind of Christ-like figure who can offer salvation, who can change your life around, because that's why he ends up rescuing Clarice. Is he says, oh, well, you've got nothing else, so you can be my Mary Magdalene and I will guide you to like a better, different life.
Huh. Well, he doesn't.
I don't know. I tried to look to see if there was like religion in Hannibal, but honest to God, you cannot find anything about this movie because it's the same name as the show. So people have done tons of shit about the show and nothing about this film.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the show it's more inviting for interpretations than the movie.
Oh, God,
is.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, let's be clear, it's just better made.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, Lecter as Christ on this forklift, barefoot, and Mason is delighted. Oh, my guest of honor has arrived. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to feed you to these boars in 2 different shifts. We're going to start with your feet, which is why they're bare, and then 8 hours later, we're going to do the rest of you, and it'll be great, and you will hopefully feel all of it.
I do like him listing off all the teeth. Also, I'm just sorry. My notes are. I was really like spicy on these notes. When I realized, like, I said, Clarice is at Mason's. I said, bitch, go home and watch TV on the couch. You're on suspension. Like, go enjoy your life.
You have no responsibility to this. If something bad happens to Hannibal Lecter, what is it to you?
Who cares?
But he's been in her ear this whole time, Trace.
But she's not going to like save. I mean, she's going to save him, but it's to save him so she can arrest him.
Well, yeah, and I do appreciate that Hannibal actually calls her out on that. You know, oh, are you just trying to do this because you're trying to get back in the good graces of the FBI? But I also think everything we've been led to believe about Clarice's character is that she believes in doing the right thing. So if she could save him, I mean, she's going to send him back to prison in her mind, but she doesn't want to leave him to die if she can prevent it.
Well, she needs therapy.
I mean, everybody needs therapy. The problem is in this world, you get therapy from people like Dr. Lecter. So anyway, she bursts in, she starts shooting. We get 2 of the guys. And I do love the part where she goes to cut him loose and she says, do right and you'll survive through this. And then he says, spoken like a true Protestant.
Okay, more religion. There you go.
So unfortunately, I guess he is also her weakness because she didn't spot the 3rd guy who's hiding behind a giant fan. So she does manage to kill this guy, but she catches a stray bullet to the chest. So she is down for the count. And then we get, again, slightly religious style imagery of him carrying her. But this is only after he advises Cordell to pitch Mason into this boar pen because, of course, they have shown up on the top level. And
you can always say it was me.
You can always say it was me, which is very similar to what he does tell Margot. And, of course, what Margot does to kill Mason is quite a bit more graphic.
But everyone, if you don't know what that is, like the whole thing is Mason has this pet eel that he keeps in a tank. She shoves this thing into his eye.
She does, but only after sodomizing Mason with a cattle prod.
Oh, I forgot
so
about
that she can activate his prostate and get a sperm sample, because what she really wanted was to have children, but she needs it to be an heir because she has been disowned. So it's fucking twisted.
That's what I'm saying. It is so wild. Like, she has to go through this incest
yeah, because Mason raped her. Repeatedly.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, again, like, we can't really talk about Margot much here because she's not in this movie, but it's like, I do think they left her out because I think after the reception that Jamie Gumb, Buffalo Bill got in the Silence of the Lambs, I'm sure they were kind of like, we can't take another, like, controversial queer character. And
Yeah, and we should clarify, she's definitely a sympathetic figure in the book. Like, you understand that Mason has done terrible things to her, that she was badly treated by her father when she was disinherited for her queerness. So in those capacities, you're like, oh, no, this is a good queer character from Robert Harris. But everything about it is how she's a bodybuilder. So I think Thomas Harris is actually maybe conflating some trans stuff or perceived trans things with lesbianism. It is incredible. Like, the character is treated with huge amounts of homophobia throughout the text. So, like, even this comeuppance with Mason feels very well earned, but it's also, oh, so you're sodomizing a gay pedophile by the lesbian who is trans.
There's a lot to unpack there, and this movie would not have been able to do that.
It would combust under the weight of this. And honestly, I think they thought that there's enough already going on in the film that to have the Margot character, you can't do her any kind of justice in this runtime without compromising everything else or making it into a 3-hour or 4-hour movie. So I think they just said, yeah, it's less problematic and easier to cut her out. And we just put in someone like Cordell instead.
And that's, again, it's so funny. You know, at the beginning I said, I think if you cut Clarice out of this movie and just had it be like the Mason, like the Potsy stuff, and it's like, oh, that's literally what Brian Fuller does in Hannibal, albeit not by his choice. He would have included Clarice if he could have, but it does work better.
It absolutely works better. Yeah. Okay, so Mason gets pitched into this boar pen by Cordell, who just kind of walks away and says, I'm free. And what do you think of this gore? Do you like to see the close-ups of Gary Oldman getting his face eaten?
Absolutely. I could have taken more of this. Because it's an extreme close-up of his face getting ripped off. You can kind of make it out, but I was like, honestly, I would have taken a full skull shot.
That would have been pretty gory. I feel like this is Ridley Scott saying, I already gave you entrails in slow motion hitting the piazza. What more do you want?
We are about to watch Ray Liotta, a brain-exposed Ray Liotta eat his own brain.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's, this isn't the finale. So you thought this was the climax, but we're actually saving some of the gory good stuff.
I guess a positive thing I'll say about this, though, is that this does feel like an ending, but it also feels a little anticlimactic. It feels too quick.
Right? Yeah, like Mason is so quickly dispatched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There isn't even Cordell, no, you should think about it. Think about it a little bit more. Okay, now do it. It's very much, you could do this and get away with it. Yeah. And then we just pitch him.
So had the movie ended here, I do think it would have been way less satisfying.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, so Clarice is carried out by Hannibal because the threat has passed, and yes, we do get to watch as Hannibal's bare feet just walk totally scot-free past all of these boars. They are not attracted to him at all because he is not scared of them.
But that's not established in the film, right?
No, it's just very much, we saw that the dog was scared of him, and presumably that means that the boars are also either scared of him or that he is like a predator on the same level.
He's got a vibe, man.
Truly. Yeah, he doesn't even need the mask anymore. So he carries her out and we see her drifting in and out of consciousness. He's fixing her up, but he's also very clearly drugging her. And we won't get a clear-minded Clarice for the rest of the film, arguably.
Yeah, and I confess, I don't love that.
Yeah, because she's not making the best decisions, and arguably the decisions she's making are ones that are not just like under the influence, but they don't reflect the kinds of things she would normally do.
No.
Anyway, so we learn it is the 4th of July because Krenler is pulling up to a very familiar lake house. So when you mentioned that Hannibal was out buying all this crockery, we saw him pull up to this house. And now we start to understand he has been laying a trap for Krenler. So when the man comes in, Lecter knocks him out, and then we're back with Clarice, who is now in an extremely low-cut, backless black dress.
With those shoes from the photo booth.
We should note, Julianne Moore looks fucking great in this outfit.
Yeah, but she's just like high the whole time.
She's totally high and ready to party.
I do love, though, as she's going down the stairs, like we hear Hannibal talking to someone, and we can only assume, because I don't think we know yet who it is, but I love that we can hear the bone saw. going off as she's walking down these stairs.
Nasty. She does also call 911, so we will get repeated cutaways to police arriving en masse across the bridge, but, presumably Krendler's house on the lake is far away from population.
Why didn't Hannibal cut this phone line?
Because I don't think he cares.
Well, because it puts a clock on, it puts a time limit on the time we have together. It's 10 minutes,
It truly does. Yes. Yeah. Start the clock. Here we go. Final confrontation time. So she takes her disoriented ass downstairs and we are set. And we have, so she takes her disoriented ass downstairs and we have set the table for dinner. So, I remember I knew because I'd read the book, but I was still just like, oh, this costume is a choice. Like, Krendler has never struck me as a baseball cap wearing guy. He's wearing this cap backwards, and he seems incredibly out of it, Trace.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So he is asked to say grace, and we clearly see by his answer where he continues to antagonize and sexualize Clarice that he is not fully out of it. Like, this is still Paul with most of his faculties operating, but he's clearly numb enough that he doesn't fully understand what's going on. And I like that because you mentioned he doesn't really seem to know what's going on, but I kind of think he maybe has some inkling.
Well, either way, though, he's not showing it. He's still antagonizing Clarice up until his dying breath. I think he dies eventually once Hannibal puts that rag on his face later. But,
I think so.
We do get another religious reference, too, because, he clocks Clarice, calls her white trash again, and Hannibal brings up the Apostle Paul that hated women, too, which didn't know that.
And there we go. Good old Paul, I guess.
Yeah. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and... Oh, that's John. Never mind. Paul.
Sure. You would know better than me. All right. So, yes, after he antagonizes Clarice, this is when Clarice is trying to make a stab at Hannibal. She's got it's either her butter knife or her steak knife, and she makes a bad lunge at him, and he obviously disarms her, but then he uses that knife to pop the lid off of Paul's head, and we see it has already been kind of sliced open, but Clarice is aghast, and then we peel back the membrane of the brain.
This all right, so first, they built because sometimes this is Ray Liotta, with like a green cap on so they can CGI them. And I think you can tell when it's a CGI brain. But
I agree.
The other option is we have a $70,000 animatronic dummy of Liotta that was created. And so when we're pulling the sack off this brain, that's the dummy because we have a real, not a human brain. I'm assuming it's an animal brain in there. But like that, honestly, I think him peeling back the sack is the grossest part of the movie for me.
I love it.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So good.
Again, just to witness this with a crowd in a theater, like that must have been wonderful.
Oh, yeah. People were shocked. You could tell that there were some people who had read the book and it was, oh, wow, are we going to go there? Oh, yes, we are. And then there was a bunch of people who were, like dressed up Sunday best, ready to see this long-awaited sequel to Silence of the Lambs. What the fuck am I seeing in this climax?
I will say, I get this is a horrifying thing to look at, but it always bugs me that Clarice is like, oh my god, stop! That's I get it, like it's her code, whatever. But I'm like, girl, like, let him die. It's fine. Like, you don't need to feel bad about this.
You want her to get in on this revenge. You want her to be,
I don't even want her to be like a willing participant. I just want her to be like, oh, that sucks. Well, whatever. One less asshole in the world.
What could I possibly do? Yeah. You've got me, Dr. Lecter. I'm defenseless. You should definitely kill this man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we should note that Lecter has been sort of gently flambeing various things in this like little side dish. It's very like you go to Benihana and they cook the food in front of you.
He has a hot plate on the side.
There we go. But we are cooking up a little piece of the prefrontal cortex because that's where the propriety part of Paul's brain is, and clearly he's not using it, so he doesn't need it. So we grill it up and we pop it in his mouth.
Okay, because he says it smells really good.
Okay, so this is my final piece of religiosity, and I want you to appreciate this because I had to go down a fucking internet rabbit hole to get this. So I was looking at the IMDb trivia, notably reliable.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, Eating a living person's brain as punishment is a reference to Dante's Inferno. I was like, is it? Okay, let me look this up. So, I don't know a ton about Dante's Inferno. Obviously, there are different levels, and I think it's part of the journey down, like,
the circles
different
of hell.
Yeah, and people get different punishments for what they've done in their life, and they have to spend the rest of eternity there. So, for this part, there was a Count Ugolini who betrayed the town of Pisa, and then he was double-crossed by his former ally, Archbishop Ruggieri. Stay with me.
Okay.
So, Ugolini and his sons were then locked in a tower by Ruggieri, and they starved to death. So when they go to hell, presumably for betraying Pisa, Ugolini is there with Ruggieri, so the two former allies who betrayed each other and, ultimately don't like each other very much. They were trapped together in the ice of Lake Coctus, but they were close enough that Ugolini could feed on Ruggieri's skull and brains, because of course he had starved to death. So the idea is that he's forever hungry and his enemy is within reach, and the thing that he would eat was the brain.
Oh, I thought it was simple. I'm going to eat your brains and gain your knowledge.
Oh my God. It's not a zombie movie.
That's cool. Again, I have no relationship to that, so that's fascinating.
Yeah. So all this to say, we are eating brains, and Krenler, yes, is eating his own brains, and he's somewhat conscious, but also somewhat not. I do like that we get to watch a slow dribble of blood, and he kind of closes his eyes and then wakes back up, and it's, So this is when Lecter starts to question if Clarice would turn him in to get back into the good graces of the FBI. And she essentially says, I don't know. And he says, well, I'm going to take Paul into the kitchen. Why don't you think about it? And she does not think about it. She tries to stage an attack in the kitchen. It doesn't go well.
She's so stupid.
I mean, here's the thing. She's very disoriented, right? Yeah. Like she's barely conscious herself because of the drugs. So she's trying to put up a good fight, but she's no match for Hannibal.
I guess for me though, I'd be in self-preservation mode. So it's like, because also she knows he's not going to kill her, but why would you test that theory?
I think she still thinks that she can save Paul, because I agree with you. At this stage, I'm like, girl, you called 911. You know they're on the way. Just get out the front door and leave the rest to the people with guns who are not under sedation. But no, she just gets her fucking hair trapped in a fridge, which is honestly one of the weirdest visual images I've seen in an action movie or a horror film. Like, I truly don't think I've ever seen someone have their ponytail slammed in a fridge door.
It's unique. I will say there is an alternate ending on this physical release.
Okay.
But it's basically the exact same ending, except she doesn't handcuff him.
Oh, okay.
Yep. They just wanted something else that was more intense and added that in there.
Well, I think this still gives her a sense of agency, right? So this idea that even though she's kind of out of it, I mean, we jumped over it, but he does kiss her here. It doesn't really look like she reciprocates, but she does use this moment to, put handcuffs on him that are tied to her wrist. And the movie tries to do this fake out of, okay, well, he's not going to hesitate to amputate your fucking hand because he's Hannibal Lecter operating in self-preservation mode. And then, of course, it's revealed, no, he actually cut off his own hand. And I think it's supposed to be kind of romantic. But I could see another version of this where she's just out of it and she doesn't try to do any of that. And then, so I guess presumably then he has both hands in that deleted scene?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. It's a dumb fake out, but I still kind of like it where you think he's going to cut off her head and we go to black and then we see her down at the dock and he has clearly escaped. And then she is being told, show us your hands. And she puts up both hands, so we know, ooh, he cut his own hand off.
Yeah, this isn't a satisfying ending, and I get that the ending in the book wouldn't have been satisfying, but I'm just kind of like, like the whole movie, and maybe it would feel more satisfying if the movie didn't make their reunion so late into the film.
Right, it is very rushed. Like, it would have been nice to have just gotten to sit with them for a little bit. And the problem is that the film wants to hit us with this very shocking, very upsetting, oh my God, brains and all this other stuff. And I mean, I like it. I think it's very interesting. I can't remember the last time I saw someone eat a piece of their own brain.
Oh,
but...
sure. Well, but I guess for me, it's more so like you had these 4 men, like Ridley Scott, the screenwriter, De Laurentiis, and Thomas Harris in a hotel room for 4 days.
This is what they came up with.
And this is what you come up with.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a like a whimper.
It truly feels like, okay, we can't do the book. Like, we just cannot do the book. But we don't have any other ideas.
Yeah.
Like, we know we need to stage some kind of confrontation. We have to preserve Clarice Starling's integrity, because that's really what people were up in arms about from the book, is that it doesn't feel like Clarice would do that. Like, our Clarice, yes, I'm doing it again, would never go with Hannibal and not try to turn him in. She would never turn to this, like, socialite lifestyle, presumably cannibalism as well. I don't know. Like, I don't know that it would have satisfied if we had a film the end of the book, but I do think it would have been at least more memorable than this ending.
I also think in the book that she does partake in Crenler's brain.
She does. She absolutely does.
Yeah.
But the whole insinuation is that she's so fucking out of it. Like, she truly is not Clarice anymore. She's something different.
Well, she's Misha.
She's partially Misha. Yeah. Okay, so that's actually not the end of the film. There's one final coda moment. It is way too similar to the end of The Silence of the Lambs, where instead of going to eat a friend for dinner, we're just beating Crenler's brain to this cutesy little child who is maybe a burgeoning cannibal on the plane.
Well, I also think, okay, I'm not one to get offended by things, and
this is racist, yeah.
It's a little racist. It's like, oh yeah,
it's
let's
very
get
much
the
like
Asian child.
Of course, an Asian person would be eating people's brains. Which, to be clear, like Trace, you have admitted that you have eaten sheep or cows' brains.
No, I haven't, but I really want to. I want to so bad.
So to be clear, like obviously eating human brains would be very unusual, but in terms of eating brains, it's not like you can go to your local grocery store, presumably in many places, and get brains.
I would say you can go to your local butcher. In many places. Okay. The grocery store is probably not going to sell brains.
Okay. All this to say, like, it is not that unusual, but yeah, the film definitely codes it as, okay, this child is curious. But yeah, the fact, again, okay, you know what? I stand corrected. There's 3 people of color in this movie. So we had our gangbanger black girl who, you know, was willing to put up an actual human baby in a gunfight. We've got Barney, who we kind of love, but is also turned to a life of selling memorabilia. So he's like kind of a criminal. And then we've got this kid who's eating brains.
Yeah.
Yay, 2001.
And I mean, to me, this feels more like we got to make the audience go, ugh, one more time. Because again, honestly, the fact that it is Hannibal, like, feeding a child Paul's brain, like the remnants of Paul's brain, it's like, okay.
I think the movie thinks that is what's disturbing. And it's just like, of course, it's a child. Like, we just cast a child. I don't think it's trying to be offensive in that way.
No,
but, you know, in hindsight, it's not
sure.
great.
But I also do think that's out of character for Hannibal. This feels rude to me.
Okay, I could see it. I think he believes that this child is uncorrupted by all of the bullshit. So he's just, you know, I'm sharing a fine dining experience with this person who is maybe curious. Because, yeah, like, we're eating this box from Dean and DeLuca, which is cha-ching. So it's a very pricey appetizer.
How did he get this on the plane through security?
How did he get on the plane at all? It's like it's all just whatever.
Because there's a line in the end when Clarice is telling when she's trying to make him stop killing Paul, where she's like, "I'll tell you all the things that we have to note you at the security checkpoints or whatever."
Okay.
But in case someone's yelling at me, because we do know that Hannibal has obviously, like, fed human meat to unwitting participants before. You know, like, Benjamin Raspail, like Julianne Moore mentions it earlier, which is like, oh yeah, he killed him at the Philharmonic Orchestra and fed his sweetbreads to the entire board or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like feeding this to a child is a bridge too far for Hannibal.
Interesting. Okay, I would like to hear from other people if you agree. Because
yeah,
I'll admit I don't feel quite as strongly, but I can definitely see your perspective, because it does feel like, oh, well, the whole reason that this isn't just any other character is that it needed to be a child.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But and that's the end of the movie.
It's the end of the movie. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it sounded like I came down really hard on this. There were tons of sequences where I just thought, I really enjoy this. You know, there are a couple of visual stylistic flourishes that Scott and company are doing that I don't love. I just don't think that Julianne Moore gets enough to do.
Yeah.
And I wish that we did get a bit more of Hannibal and Clarice. You know, the cat and mousing is fun, but we're here for the reunion and we get so little of it late in the game. But like when the movie goes for the big gory set pieces, we deliver
100%. And I think most scenes with Anthony Hopkins, like where the movie are at its best, is where the movie's at its best. Gary Oldman, again, I love watching him in this movie, even though you can't tell it's him.
He's having so much fun.
I really do think. I mean, the plot is fine, but the Clarice of it all really is kind of a blight on this film for me.
Yeah, I can see it, and I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, like there are definitely things to admire and to like about this movie, but like it's almost like Alien 3, where I'm like, I think it's a fascinating movie, but like as a sequel to Silence of the Lambs, I don't like it.
Right. Yeah. Again, I wonder how it works in isolation, or if people saw this first. Like, would all of these issues kind of just evaporate because you're not coming in with the knowledge of what could have been?
I truly think anyone that was alive when this film came out, I cannot imagine people seeing this before Silence of the Lambs. However, I can.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, but I find it more likely now. Like I find it more likely now, especially like a younger person would come across Hannibal, maybe because they've heard of the TV show or something like that.
Yeah, like you've heard of Hannibal Lecter, so you seek out the title Hannibal as opposed to Silence of the Lambs. What the fuck is that?
Exactly. So I think it's more likely it would happen now than it would have back in 2001. But yeah, I don't know. But that must be interesting.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, well, before we announce what we're covering next week, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. And if you want to chat with other listeners, please join our new Horror Queers Discord. Link is in the show notes. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you will get 384 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on The Ugly Stepsister, Clown in a Cornfield, Until Dawn, Final Destination Bloodlines, and a brand new audio commentary on Another Simple Favor, streaming now exclusively on Prime Video.
Oh my god, that's not an ad though.
It's not an ad, but that's where it is. And we've also opened up a brand new Patreon tier, the Requel tier, where we are doing episode-by-episode recaps of Season 2 of The Last of Us. So, if you didn't stick around for the first part in April, please come and finish it with us this month, because we are finishing this shit.
There we go, yeah.
Good shit, but shit.
Good shit.
Joe, what are we talking about next week?
All right, so Trace, I'm super excited because this is a new to me watch, and I'm feeling a little vampiric, so we're going to check out A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Oh, good movie. Only seen it once, though. I have not revisited it since it came out, I want to say in 2014.
Yes, you are correct. So I guess we're both overdue.
Well, we'll talk about it. But until next week, we can cross out Hannibal.
Indeed. And cross out Horror Queers.